Ghostface is back. Make yourself harder to find. Delete social media, tape over your phone camera.
Yes, thank you very much, Edward Snowden.
There's certain rules to surviving. Believe me, I know. The killer is a part of something in the past. This one just feels different.
We're all suspects. Who's next?
Hello, Samantha.
Who is this?
Someone who knows your little secret.
You've got bruises.
It's from football practice.
Motive. If I can't have her, no one can. Don't trust anyone.
I'll be right back.
He's dead.
Mom?
Well,
Sydney.
I want you to help us kill him. You want me to help you and the host of a morning show commit murder, correct?
Yeah. I've seen this movie before.
Not this movie.
Craving something scary.
All right, time to go. Lethal Collector time.
Yeah. Here we go.
Let's give it up for that intro. That was
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Great job,
Killer.
Knight.
Nice.
Killer stuff.
nice.
Good stuff.
Murders
dude.
that.
And that's the first time we've heard the final little touch at the end.
Yeah.
That was very nice.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So, guys, we have finally gotten to this point. We can talk spoilers, all the spoilers that we want about Scream 5 or Scream 2, 2022, whatever we want to call it.
The new one.
Yeah, the new one, the new Scream. And we will not show the people our little ghost face dancing that we were doing backstage. But yeah, man, I'm excited to do this. So real quick, and then I'll just let us just go with this conversation. But just to say to guys in the chat, thanks for showing up. We appreciate it. We're going to try to show your comments. We may not get to them all, but we see Marshall, Bobby, Necessary Distraction, Alex, a whole bunch of you guys in here. We appreciate you guys. Blucka's in here, the most electrifying tag team in horror entertainment.
Appreciate that.
All right.
We appreciate that.
Reagan's in the chat saying, Stu Nation.
Hope,
All
hope.
right.
We're here, baby.
All right. Okay, guys. So where are we going to start with this? I mean, there's so much to talk about, so I don't want to take up any more time. Where do we want to start?
The beginning. Yeah.
Thank you, Jake.
Opening kill, baby.
Yeah.
Hey, look, we all must be kind of on the same page because that's exactly what I was thinking too. So let's talk about the opening scene.
Perfect.
All right. What do we got?
Yeah.
What do we got, guys? It was great, but I'll let you guys jump in.
Jake?
Okay, yeah, I'll start it off. Let's talk opening scene. All right, so Jenna Ortega is the opening attack, as Dewey would say later on, and it's pretty brutal. Like, it starts off like it's probably the only moment in the entire film that I feel like where it's like not slow, but it's like it's a build up to something. The rest after this scene, the rest of the movie is just this fast paced roller coaster that's pretty crazy. But I like the build up here, the conversation where Roger L. Jackson over the phone. We have him doing a little more of a chill voice, like imitating who I think is supposed to be Richie over the phone. We're already getting into spoiler territory, so that should go without saying with this live stream. Don't be here if you haven't seen it yet, or I will spoil it for you, and you will be like, "Hey, that Killjoy Jake guy is kind of a butthole." So I don't want anyone to think that. So spoilers ahead. But yeah, he's. I love how chill he is at the beginning of this. Roger L. Jackson. I love his voice. Like how he's talking to Tara at first seems so chill, but then when he like starts getting creepy. The conversation is done written really well. I think this is a really good opening scene. My only something that was pointed out to me in a comment though is that two things are kind of weird about this scene. When Tara's making ramen, she does it the wrong way. She doesn't make ramen correctly.
These kids nowadays.
Maybe she just honestly doesn't know how to make it. You know, I'm fine with that. I don't see it as a mistake. That's fine. Also, the other thing is that isn't like one of the questions is that Sydney isn't like the character of Sydney Prescott within the Stab movies. Isn't she like not in any of them after the third one? Like, isn't that the whole like?
Yes.
And that's kind of a mistake.
Well, they said
like.
said in the film later on that she's in all of them but the last one.
Right. So isn't that
in the movie?
Because isn't it canonical that she sued after
Yes.
the third Stab movie?
Third
Yes.
one?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So she sued never to have it again. But because they were even asking why did they stop in Scream 4, they asked why did they stop making movies, and that's when she related like I threatened to sue him or whatever. But there was already seventh Stab at that point or whatever, sixth Stab.
So is that when she sues them? Because okay, we'll get that clarified.
And then they created Stab 8, which was just over the top, and Metal Ghostface was prancing around, and
I know it was like the MCU for Stab.
Yeah, it was great. It was over the top.
Overall, I really enjoyed the opening scene. It's brutal. The thing I really wanted to get to was Jenna Ortega. The attack on her is awesome.
Yeah.
That stab through the hand, all like just everything about this entire scene is very brutal, very intense. Right from the get go, I think they did a really good job with this. My only other gripe with this scene is that it does just cut the title card, and then we don't exactly see. It would have been kind of nice to see maybe the policeman kick down the door or something, and Ghostface runs through the back and they lose him. Just something. But I guess maybe that would have taken away from the brutality of this scene. So it is a little clunky. I feel that it just cuts to title card and then moves on. But besides that, I really liked it. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I thought it was the best opening scene since '96. As far as from start to finish. I mean, Scream 2 had an excellent opening scene just because it was just so out there in many ways. I mean, just the way that. But overall, it wasn't start to finish. It wasn't just how this. I mean, the tone, everything just kept building and building and ramping up. I thought this was the closest you could get to '96 as far as opening scenes. You're never gonna recreate the legendary Drew Barrymore scene. It's not gonna happen. So,
right.
But I felt like this was about as close as you could get. Jenna Ortega's acting was phenomenal. They had some nice little nods and Easter eggs in it. The guy's name is Charlie, right? When she's talking to him on the phone. Yeah. So nod to Scream 4, stuff like that. And that's another thing too. Right then and there, Ghostface knew she had no idea. You could make that argument that she had no idea about the Stab franchise because she didn't even get the subtle references he was throwing out. Right. But I thought start to finish, I thought it was great. I thought the attack was absolutely brutal. Ghostface didn't even care when they saw the police sirens. He just kept going. That sirens pull up, and Ghostface is just okay, well, come get me type thing. It was just it really established the tone for the rest of the film, which is what you want. You want your opening scene to kind of set the pace, set the tone, and really allow it to move forward. The only thing that I thought was kind of silly was how she realized she was talking to Ghostface, because the entire dialogue was that she was talking to her mom's new boyfriend or whatever, or somebody that that is in a group with her and stuff like that and all that stuff. And Ghostface is relaying how she always talks about her and she's exactly what you relate. And then the big reveal moment was Tara. Don't you think that he would have known your name because she talks about you? I thought that was kind of funny. But I mean, overall,
I love the way he said it too, man.
Yeah,
the voice work was as good as it's ever been.
I think it
Isn't
was
that crazy.
It was so natural and calm and just Ghostface throughout was just, it really mirrored the type of Ghostface we got. And I think that was the point. It was supposed to be Ghostface was more brutal, more dark in every way in this film. And I think that's kind of how, Roger Jackson really portrayed Ghostface in this, that very smooth, almost sort of suave, I do this every Wednesday type Ghostface. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
He doesn't get enough credit, man. Does not get enough credit for this role.
No, he doesn't.
He adds a whole nother layer to these films that is so. It feels like the unsung hero of this franchise for sure.
I saw a tweet. I wish I remembered who said it, but it was something along the lines of it was Roger Jackson is to Scream what Robert Englund is to Nightmare on Elm Street. It just started. It was basically saying Roger Jackson is Scream. Scream isn't Scream without Roger L. Jackson. Like, and it is, it's true. I mean, could you imagine like surprise, like scary movie?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Like Mickey Mouse and stuff. Like, boy. Yeah, scary movies still ruin Scream for me. I love Scary Movie as much as I love Scream, but like I can't, like every time I watch like one, I feel like I mix scenes. I'm like, oh, this was the scene where this happened. It's great. But anyway, sticking on track. The opening scene, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it did everything that you could ask for an opening scene for this. I thought Jenna Ortega, we talked about in the last video. She was arguably the MVP of this film. I thought Jack Quaid did an amazing job too, but Jenna Ortega stole the show in every scene she was in.
She did.
She just took it. She just completely took it over. And maybe it's ignorance on my part, but I didn't expect that from her. Like I've seen her in a couple things. I saw her in Babysitters 2, or right?
She's in the second Babysitter movie.
Yeah, she was great in that. I saw her in one other film I can't think of off the top of my head. But like I didn't feel like I felt like this was night and day acting compared to those movies. And maybe it was just the type of thing that she was able to have in this, where she was really like the spotlight in that moment. And even in all her scenes, she was sort of highlighted in many ways. And I'm glad that they didn't kill her off, because I think that she's I could, because of the way everything shaped up, I really could see in a Scream 6 her kind of taking over the mantle. Like I think they had the intentions of Sam taking over, but I just think Jenna Ortega killed it so much that it kind of made it. I think just through fan service, they're gonna transition it. But however, I do like the idea of the story rather than it being just a final girl like Sydney. I mean, Gail was too, but Sydney was the final girl. I actually like the idea of the sisters being the ones to carry on the franchise.
I agree.
Me too.
Yeah, and then you have the story sort of centered around them rather than just rehashing what we got in 4 films. And not just that, because of this story centering around them, there's so many directions you could go with this. And I really think Scream 6 may be far better than Scream 5. Just because now they don't have to fill in all the blanks. They don't have to, now they can just tell their story. They have the groundwork laid, and they can finally make their movie. They did the movie like the Halloween 18 thing, where you got to kind of incorporate all the OGs. You got to kind of piece all this stuff together. You got to try to make things that didn't make sense. And I think that they did that in this film, and I think that they'll be able to go over. And I really like the idea of the 2 sisters being the sort of final girl going forward, but yeah, the opening scene was great. There we go. Sorry, I got off track.
I was gonna say,
right.
we went in a lot of directions right there.
The roller
that's
coaster
cool.
right over here.
A roller coaster, man. All right, so I'll jump in. Knight, I'm really excited to hear your thoughts tonight too.
Okay.
So the opening scene I thought was very, very good. I believe that it feels like it feels more like the first one because they intended it to. Like they like unlike 2, 3, and 4, they weren't trying to replicate the feel of that first opening scene, right? They were trying to be different every time. Wes had done that first opening scene. He was interested in doing new things. So I think that we have that nostalgia almost. We have that feel like, wow, this is really powerful. This is the closest to the first because that was the whole point. I think that was they wrote it to be that way. So, like, for me personally, where I rank this, I'm not going to do. It's too soon to rank it. I've only seen the movie twice, right? So, let me watch this 10, 15 times. Then I can really get a feel to more evenly with the other movies. Then I'll start ranking things. But I will say I liked it a lot. I'm not ready to say it was my second or third most favorite, but I think it was done really well, and I thought it did closely mirror the first one as by design. And I was happy with that, though. It was, and I love, again, Roger L. Jackson. I just had to throw in my 2 cents. Yeah, the guy's brilliant. And the entire movie, he just felt it. When you heard Ghostface talk, it was just there was a confidence. There was like this total control when he spoke. And
I agree.
It was just a little different. Again, not that it wasn't before, but it did feel different. And I think we all picked up on that feeling. So I love the banter. I love the dialogue of Ghostface. I love the attack. The brutality was great. And like you say, if those cops hadn't shown up, who knows? That may have been he may have just finished the job, right? But in fact, even sitting in the hospital, I think, or somewhere it says something like, "I'm going to finish what I started," or something with her. Anyway, yeah, it was a great opening kill though. And as far as the ramen noodles go, dude, yeah, if you dump the noodles in the pot, you don't dump the pot in the sink. You let him stay in the pot, okay? It's like, I thought we got this all in college. Like, this is like 101.
She's 17 in high school. She hasn't gone through college yet, and that's why she doesn't know how to make ramen noodles.
Come on now.
There we go.
Okay, look.
I like that.
She's never struggled a day in her life.
Yeah,
exactly.
That was privilege. That was privilege right there. That's what that was.
Right?
The way that they talked about her mom always being gone. That had to have been more than her first time with the ramen noodles, because like it's just the feeling you got. But anyway, who cares, right? So, but the point is, the opening scene was great because of ramen. It's what
let's go.
Ramen was the clincher, man. Anyway, it was great. I agree with everyone's comments. I just had to add that, and and Tara did do well, and I hate to rabbit trail because we're trying to stay focused right now, but I will just piggyback a little bit on Fate, because my thoughts have been, and I've kicked this around with some people, is what if, and this is just a hypothetical, right? What if we are seeing them set up the groundwork for Tara to end up being the ultimate final girl of the two sisters, and that Sam, maybe, who knows what's going to happen to her, now that she's killed, and she's given in to those instincts that she's been repressing for these years.
The dark side.
The dark side. She's tasted it, and it looked like to me like she enjoyed it, because when she reached up and did the whole with the knife, like Ghostface does, I'm like, uh-oh. So I'm just saying, what if Tara is that strong character because she's going to end up being the final girl down the road? Just a thought.
I 100% could see that being the case. I would like to see them be the center of the movie, just because, and like, I just saw a comment pop up that was like, oh, these are Sydney's movies. And like, dude, the first three, I 100% agree. Like, those are Sidney Prescott movies. But we gotta move forward with the series. If we want to keep Scream alive, we got to keep it fresh. Not everything has to be, how many more people want to kill Sidney Prescott? is my question. About it.
That's what I've said. I believe I've even said this on the Lethal Collective back when we were doing this on Knight's channel. And I know I've said it for sure on my channel, things like that. Like, we need, as a fandom, we need to decide now, are we Sydney and the OG3 fans, or are we Scream fans? Because I think that right now there's this sort of divide amongst fandom where they're like, oh, it's not Scream without Sydney. And I understand that in many ways it's not. But I think if you say, like myself, I am a Scream fan. I'm a fan of the franchise. Yes, I love Sydney, but I love everything. It's not, I don't watch Scream just because of Sydney. I watch it because of the realism, because of Ghostface, because of the story, because of everything, like as a whole. So if we're Scream fans, we have to give it a chance. We have to at least give the franchise a chance. Because what happens at Scream 6 is the best movie we've ever gotten. I don't think anything will ever surpass Scream 1. But like, what if now, because they can tell their own story and they don't have to, piece all these things together and incorporate all this stuff, and not just that, all the things that people didn't like about Scream 5, they can now correct in Scream 6. Like, who's to say that Scream 6 isn't the best movie? And why wouldn't you, at least if you're a Scream fan, give Scream 6 a chance? Like, why not? And then make your decision. Then if you felt that movie's terrible, then fine. That's fine. Like, then now now you can make your proper assessment of the franchise. But I just think, like, we're in this weird period where people are like, I'm a Scream fan, but it's not Scream without Sydney. So to me, I look at it as like, okay, so you're a Sydney fan. You're not a Scream fan, because Scream is more than just Sydney.
Yeah, and this is what I think too, to piggyback on what you're saying, is that this is a great time for that bridge to move forward. You know what I'm saying? Before we get to the point where people start to really kind of fall off of the Sydney train, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, Jake, people can't just keep coming after Sydney Prescott. That's just not going to work. So now that we've got Scream 5 out of the way, we can carve a brand new path. If they want, maybe she could have, some small connection to the next movie or the next one, and, maybe be phased out completely or almost completely, but they could go in so many directions now. They could make up their own new rules, and that's good for the franchise because, as we've seen before, not to always do this, but when we look at Halloween, they've tied themselves to Laurie for so long, and right now they're just getting to a point where they might be able to. We'll have to see what Halloween Ends does. But it's taken a long time for them to try to get away from Laurie Strode. They've tried a couple times, and it didn't really work. So I think Scream is at a point where it's a great time to do that. Don't get me wrong. I love Sidney Prescott. I love Neve Campbell. But again, being in this realistic, semi-realistic world of the movies, she at some point has to be able to move on, and now they can do so many wonderful things. They're open to so many possibilities.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Not just that, but like, how long can she continue these movies before you have to kill her?
Yes.
Because I mean, that's the point. At some point you're going to, so like now I think is a perfect time because you now you have this time where it's like a perfect, you have the proper send off. Sydney has a family, she has a husband, she has everything she needs to go live her happy ending, which is what people wanted. So why keep forcing the audience to have her return, or force the audience forcing the production company to keep having her return? And now you're painting yourself into this corner where it's like, okay, like, so now we have to try to make her fit. But I mean, even this, like, you could have left Sydney completely out of the film and it would have been the same movie. Like she had no, she had no huge significance. There was no real tie to her other than Dewey's death. Like, she wanted to finish this because Dewey died. Like, and so it wasn't like this was like a direct connection. It wasn't like Sam was Sydney and Billy's love child. She was just Billy's love child. Like, and so like there was no real tie or connection to Sydney. Sydney wasn't even in the movie until the very end. Outside of Dewey, Gail and Sydney were hardly in this movie. A lot less than I thought they would be. I thought they'd be in this movie a little bit more. Not much.
I think they were important to the plot though, because if they weren't there at the end, Sam would have been dead, like, easy. I think Amber and Richie against just Sam, yeah, she would have gone down. That would have been it. And Tara was not going to be any help. The only reason she even got a shot on Amber at the end was because, well, she had a gun and Amber half of her face was burnt. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. I think if the legacy characters weren't in this ending scene, it would be really weird. So I don't know. And also it works with the plot. Like, if they weren't there, Sam's a goner. Sam's not making it through this, despite the fact that she has killer blood in her, as we see at the end of the end of this movie. Which I had a comment the other day on one of my videos that I thought was awesome. They were like, the best kill in this movie isn't even done by Ghostface, it's done by Sam with Richie. Like, that's a brutal kill.
It's one of my favorites of the franchise.
Yeah,
honestly, that last kill with Sam, that was fantastic.
And that's cool to me. Like, Ghostface has some really good kills in this, and we've all been praising that, I know, for a while now. There was a lot of brutal kills in this. Not exactly what I wanted from the movie. Like, I did want a lot more creative deaths. They did a lot more knife kills in this movie, but they were all very, like, personal, and they took the knife kill and they made it, like, slower and just way more brutal, and it just, like, especially Wes's death. Like, when Wes gets the knife slowly driven through his neck, I mean, that's hard to watch, dude. That's like, I almost had to turn away watching that. That messed me up so bad. So they took the knife kill and elevated it in this movie, which I applaud Radio Silence and the writers for doing with these scenes. Oh, and also the VFX department, because a lot of that was actually digital. But sorry, I'm just seeing a bunch of good stuff in the chat that I wanted to go off of. So don't mind me for butting in.
That's okay.
There is. I do agree that Sam finally sort of giving into her, primal instinct as a serial killer, I thought was great. The only thing that I hated about that, and it really bothered me, was that Billy told her where the knife was. It wasn't like, I would have much rather, I didn't mind the Billy plugins and stuff. I just thought that was a little silly. And I get it. It's her subconscious. It's in her head. So she very likely saw it. And then
it's her seeing it, and the hallucination is also,
But I just thought that was a little over the top. I would have rather them, like, her see the knife, have that moment, that brashy moment, and then look up in the mirror and you just see Billy, like, like giving her a nod or something, or like, something, or like, and Billy, I really think that moment was a very symbolic and powerful moment for Sam, because, and I think that they should have really hit home with that. I would have loved after that moment, Billy like showing up in the mirror and then like fading away as like a sign that like she's overcame that. Like she unleashed, like it was therapy for her. She had this struggle in her. She didn't want to be like Billy. She had all these.
So she had to
issues.
kill somebody to do that.
That's the best therapy in the world. Homicide, baby.
Okay, wait.
What was the line in Scream '96? You know, self-mutilation is out this year, and homicide is it. It's very therapeutic. Whatever.
More therapeutic solution.
That would have been a perfect tie-in.
Therapeutic.
To have that line, and yeah. So it just like it was like her release of the moment. Like I got it out of my way. I did it for good. You know, that kind of thing.
It's just the way you're saying it that sounds like you're just promoting murder right now. You're like, you know what? If you guys are struggling with something, go just fucking kill your problem.
I want to say this right now.
Stab them in the face.
This channel does not condone murder. So just so that everyone
Fate Decided's channel does, though, just to get that out of the
If you're into homicidal murder, you might want to check out my boy Fate on his channel.
We're gonna find out.
Well, and the other thing too, guys, is that when the movie ends, when she's outside, she still sees Billy.
Yeah.
Remember, like in the reflection outside. So that tells us that he's not gone. Like she's still dealing with this psychosis situation.
It would have been a cool moment to have. You could have sort of wrapped that up, and then because now it's like now you almost have to have Billy in Scream 6 as an hallucination.
Yeah.
You know, like which I'm sure that he wouldn't mind. I mean, obviously he was excited about this.
And Steven, if we have Billy again in the next movie, who else do we have to have in the next movie?
Well, it kind of makes sense now. You know, that Billy's been established as a character in her head. Who better to help her defeat Stu when it's revealed that he's the ultimate mastermind of the situation? I mean, it makes perfect sense. So it's actually really Scream 5 did the better setup for Stu than any of the other films. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, you're right.
There you go, baby, right there. That is the Stu train, and there are seats available. I have first class seats. I'm still
set off all this week. That train is going right off a cliff.
No. Fate, let me tell you, Fate, listen, brother. This movie laid down new tracks for the train, so we are ready to travel, and we are going to show up.
You see how I steered this one to this?
The problem.
I steered it to this.
Buddy.
This film did exactly what it did. It made a bunch of people that are conspiracy theorists and called them out and basically made fun of them. That's what it did. Even the title of the YouTube channel is True Crime Conspiracy.
Well, of course it is.
That's making fun of you.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's targeted specifically at Steven's channel.
Oh, of course, yes. No.
The whole movie was about toxic fandom. Right there to my top right.
No, there's nothing toxic about my fandom, but let me just tell you, that's
you're the toxic fandom, not your following, not your community.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. I am just an advocator of truth, and so basically,
clearly not.
What it amounts to is they can't reveal more than that in Scream 5 because it's too much. I mean, it's no coincidence it's the same page that Kirby's on. Like, they can't make a big deal of Kirby because then that derails what they're already trying to do with all these new people. So it was perfect. You subtly lay the foundation. You throw the breadcrumbs.
They confirmed Kirby.
Yeah.
They didn't confirm Stu.
Like, no way. You can't.
That would have been a perfect moment to confirm Stu as well. But no, they bought into
nope, they would not.
Hey, let me just jump in for 1 second real quick because
that's the worst time to do it. I just got to say that's the worst time. You do not confirm Stu.
I just want to say one thing because I'm a huge Kirby fan. And it looks like in the next movie, what are we getting, guys? Hallelujah!
Yeah, there she is.
So this is actually a good question for everybody. Like, do they actually bring Kirby back though?
I think so.
Think
about. I got two things for that. So let's say, so Neve Campbell has recently expressed interest in doing another movie. She said that on an interview. Tyler Gillette also had an interview where he's like, oh, we have plenty more stories to tell in Woodsboro. Let's do this, which is really exciting for Scream fans. But the other thing is, if we have more stories, we need more characters because, there was only 4 new surviving new characters.
Exactly.
So we're gonna need to bring in not only more legacy characters, like let's compare this to Halloween Kills that brings in legacy characters we didn't even know we had, like Lonnie. Lonnie is in the movie, man, and he's only
and he was a good character too, man.
and he was a great character.
Yes.
So let's bring in Kirby Reed, let's bring in Mark Kincaid. Because here's another thing that was recently, I had a great comment the other day. I'm crediting all these wonderful people who have given me these ideas. Mark Kincaid would be the great law officer or like some kind of authority presence that we are going to be lacking without Dewey in a future movie. Think about that. Who like that would be an awesome character to have to kind of be like Dewey's replacement, essentially. I'm sure that's controversial with some fans who might think that Dewey's a way better character because, like, but
he's
Kincaid
dead.
would be, but he's dead, and Kincaid would be a great stand-in, I think, to have him and Sydney along the ride, just trying to take down Ghostface. That would be cool. I'm all about that personally, and maybe Stu. I guess.
That's right. There you go, Jake. Come on. I'm pulling you across. Let's
put
go.
on your tinfoil hat, too.
Yeah, there you go. There he is. Oh, yeah, he's back. He's coming.
Okay, but here's the thing. All right.
Done deal.
Let's say you're right. Let's say they are going to bring back Stu. What is the point? Sydney might not even be in this movie. I mean, obviously, if Nev wants to come back, she's going to
She's coming back. She's coming back.
But that's the thing. Like, why without Sydney as like a main integral part in this film? Because even if, let's say Sydney is in Scream 6, if she is in Scream 6 the same way she was in Scream 5, Stu makes no sense. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to bring him back other than just fan service. And Stu was in Scream 5 as like he did a voiceover, and and they confirmed that he was the metal ghost face mask. I don't believe he was the one under the mask, but he was
just the voice.
Yeah, he was the one that was running around, trotting around, doing all the voiceovers. So he was in it. We had Drew Barrymore in it. All that stuff. Like there was like 10 different voice actors. Jamie Kennedy had a voiceover in it. All that stuff. I have a whole list. I got to do a video on it. But what I'm saying is that like even like now, there's no point in bringing Stu back. Like, I think that was just like a little fun fan service moment. Like, it was like, we see that everyone wants it. Everyone's talking about it. So let's throw this in. They're not going to bring Stu back because there's no point in bringing him back in Scream 6. Like,
sure there is.
But there's not. Like,
well, first of all, Fate, bro. Come on, man. Look, in Scream 5, they just gave Stu more motive to come back. They killed his nephew. So now there's another reason to come back and avenge the death of his nephew. And we don't know who this sister chick is. Stu's got a sister out there. So that's very intriguing. Whether he comes back or not, that's very intriguing.
And they never said he was dead. They never said that he was dead.
No, they never said he was dead.
To be fair, they never said that.
I mean,
and I listened, guys,
I would have thought that they would have said it because obviously they name dropped him. And I actually I'm telling you, Steven, like, I just want to say something. Through this whole movie, I was just waiting to see if he was going to pop up. And I was just about to be like, oh, crap.
But here's the thing.
But they never said he was dead, and they definitely could have.
But here's the thing, though, too. They never said he was alive, and all of the dialogue was alluding to him being dead. Even when Dewey is talking and relaying to it, they asked him, and he said, he's Stu Macher. He was a Looney Tune as well. That would have been a perfect time to say, that would have been a perfect time to say Stu's locked up in a penitentiary.
It would have been the perfect time to say, thankfully, he's dead. We don't have to worry about him anymore. This argument works both ways.
But you don't need to say that because he's dead. He's been dead. He's been dead for 25 years. It makes more sense to just not say anything and let the fandom buy into it more than it is to actually say, well,
he's not dead. That's the whole thing.
They didn't say half the characters were dead, but we just knew that they were dead. So now, from now on, they have to, in every sequel, they have to say, like, oh, well, Vince died. Who else died? Oh, yeah, this person. Like, they have to go through every character and confirm them dead. We're not smart enough as a fandom.
If he's alive, it doesn't matter.
All right, listen, I'm pretty neutral in the whole Stu situation. I'm not going to lie, I could care less. I love Matthew Lillard, but, like, bringing him back would be a bit of a stretch. But I will say this. They have confirmed that Billy died. Sidney Prescott has a line in Scream 3, I believe, where she says, I killed Billy. So
Yes.
she says that. She never specifically says she killed Stu at any given
Nobody
point,
has.
and no one has in the franchise. So there is that, and I just want to I just want to throw that out there. I'm probably just adding more fuel to the fire, but I feel it's important to say that I'm like I said, I'm pretty indifferent to the whole situation. I could care less one way or the other.
Here's my question. Okay, if Stu isn't in Scream 6, are you still gonna be riding that train? Like,
Well,
so
this
we
is
get
the-
to Scream 10, and you're gonna be like, he's gonna come
Well,
back as an old man.
I mean,
This is
look,
it. Like,
I can't forecast the next 10 years, but I can tell you that if he's not in 6, that does nothing to the. If this is a trilogy, that could be the end game. So that even if he, what I'll look for in 6, if he's not in 6, I'll be looking for any other type of subtle clues, groundwork, foundational work that points that direction. That's what I'll be looking for. And so one movie at a time. But this movie, to me, only stoked the fire. I think it only ups the ante.
I
He's
will
coming
say
back.
this. Let me say this too, because I was pretty much like Jake was. I was pretty much in the middle. I didn't, one way or the other. And the more that we talked about it, the more that we talked about the possibilities and the excitement, like this excitement we got going on right now. I'm telling you, man, it actually made my viewing much more exciting, just wondering if he would pop up. But I will say this. Wes Craven said he wasn't dead.
Absolutely.
So that
Yes, sir.
always plays in the back of my mind. And I was just waiting for them to say that he was dead in this movie because they easily could have, but they didn't. So
They
I'm
did
just
not.
saying that it's
why?
possible.
Like, why do they need to come out and say, like, they have
Okay.
to confirm every character in the franchise is dead? And one last thing I'll let you like, the other thing is that, like, if they wanted to establish the roots for Stu to bring him forward, that's not the way that they would have done it. That was a blink and you missed it moment. Like that was like, if they really wanted to lay the groundwork to bring Stu back into a future film, you would have it doesn't have to be anything over the top, but you would have more than a conspiracy theory channel mentioning Stu. Like,
Nope.
it would be
I don't
something.
think so.
It would be,
I don't agree. I don't think so.
something.
You
It
can't.
would be
There's
something.
too much
But again-
in this
Thank you.
movie that
Thank
they
you
are
for the correction.
cramming in. You can't fit it in there. That's why they couldn't talk about Kirby. It's just too much.
There's no like, you're telling me that nobody knew that he would be alive. Like, it wasn't.
Of course
like,
they knew.
Even the title wasn't like, oh, here's the proof or anything like that. It was just like a question. Like,
Yeah,
it could have
that's
been
what
clickbait for all we know. Like,
I know.
it's a YouTube
See, look.
channel. Like,
I mean, look. A real simple answer, and we're not. And we'll get on to other stuff because this is not just about a Stu
No.
show. But look, here's the thing. It made sense to me. It's on a conspiracy site. In fact, that made me even more excited because I'm like, that's where it should be. Because if you had a scenario happen 25 years ago, where he goes into the psych ward or whatever, the trial's done, even if they do it out of state, whatever, out of town. And Woodsboro is a small town, so it would not be unfathomable to me that Stu's parents, we know they probably have a lot of influence in the town. They're very well off. But who knows? My thought is this, very simply, it doesn't take more than 10, 20 years for a legend to become, truth. And if the parents had said, you know what, we can't deal with the shame that this is bringing on the family in this small town, the questions we're finally getting, how's Stu? So we're going to tell the family, we're going to start telling the town that he died. He died in the facility. He's no longer alive. Unfortunately, our son died.
That makes no sense. There'd be death records. There'd be all kinds of stuff. Like, that's silly.
Well,
Here's the thing.
hey.
If there was a conspiracy,
Not if you're 17.
How can Stu being alive be a conspiracy? Like, it was public. That was one of the biggest things in the world of Scream. Like, if Stu was to survive, it wouldn't be a conspiracy. People would know about it. Even 25 years later, people would know. It wouldn't be like is Stu alive? It would be like, Stu survived. Like, it wouldn't be a question of, is he alive or is he dead? That's what I'm saying. Like, if he is alive, it wouldn't have been a question, is he alive? It would have been known. It's not like you're telling me, YouTuber, us, do you just make a video without knowing what you're talking about? Like, of course not.
No.
What that was a conspiracy theory video. It was a video like, Stu died on record, but maybe he went to the morgue, and basically what you're doing, maybe he disappeared and the family took him away and he disappeared. That's a conspiracy theory.
Those are all possibilities. Like, I mean,
that's true.
Those are all real. Those are all possibilities.
It'd be like if Manson died. Like, there's people that are like, nope, he went to hell, he's the devil now. Like, they're coming up with weird conspiracy theories. But in reality, we know he died. There's public records for that. There's obituaries. There's knowledge.
I haven't seen him.
In prison. He died in prison. Just because you didn't look him up doesn't mean it don't exist.
I've never seen him in the movie.
That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it wouldn't be a question. It would be real. There would be a real statement. It would be
but not necessarily, man. Because if it's a scenario where, let's say, he served 10 years, he was a minor, he gets out, his parents say, you know what, we're getting out of this place, we're going off somewhere. No one ever hears from the Machers again, right? Except for his sister who hangs around or whatever. We don't even know where she's at. But if he's out of town and 10 years go by, 15 years go by. These 17-year-old kids hear rumors. They're not going to know. Adults may not even know if he's alive or not. If they're off the grid,
but they don't know he was alive beforehand. Even if
that's
what you're saying is correct,
of course they know that.
Why wasn't it? Why wasn't
it's
the
never
title,
been in question that he's alive?
Did Stu survive after getting out of prison? No, it wasn't anything like that. It was like, did Stu survive? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was a silly little nod. We can't go too crazy with it.
Well, here's the thing, dude. No, you and I. This will be something that you and I always agree to disagree on.
Yeah, of course.
And that's fine. But the thing, at the end of the day, Knight mentioned it earlier, and this is not a crutch. This is the truth. Wes Craven says he was alive. When Wes Craven said he was alive, at that moment in time, there was no more. I mean, I could talk debate all night, but that's fun. But at the end of the day, we're nitpicking because if he was alive, and by the way, Wes also said Kirby was alive, and Radio Silence acknowledged that as canon because they made her alive now. And Wes was on record saying that Kirby was not dead, that he was going to bring her back. They honored that, and so they know the canon here. They know Wes had him alive. So it would not surprise me whatsoever if what starts off to be a conspiracy turns out to be a reality and we see Stu return. That's all I'm going to do. I rest my case.
Why did Wes never bring him back then? Like, if he really
was going to.
But why didn't he? Even in Scream 3.
Columbine.
Yes.
We know why.
But they rewrote Scream 3 several times. You're telling me they couldn't have rewritten Stu in another way? No,
that's not the way he wanted to do it. He had a very specific plan for Stu.
Matthew Lillard was already signed on. They paid him to come back already. So they basically just wasted that money. Like, that makes no sense. They had to rewrite the story regardless. Why wouldn't you just incorporate him then? Or why wouldn't you incorporate him in Scream 4? Scream 4 would have been the perfect time to bring him back because that would have really started off a trilogy. I mean,
that would not. That 4 wasn't the time. 4 wasn't the time because they already
6 is the time, 7 is the time. Like, that's silly.
Sure,
like,
absolutely.
If anyone was going to bring him back, it'd be Wes Craven. Why wouldn't Wes?
Well,
Craven
let me ask you something.
You guys
Faye.
even said that. You even said.
Can I ask you a question, bro? Bro, let me ask you a legit question.
Yes.
If you have a book, let's say you have a book, a novel, right? Yes. You read the first chapter of the novel, okay, and something happens where the rest of the novel is written on disappearing ink. You never see it. How are you going to be able to successfully predict what was the middle and what was the end? We don't know because the first trilogy was supposed to be written was 5, 6, and 7. Wes and Kevin had a new trilogy written, so we cannot speak to what Wes was going to do with Stu. We only saw the first quarter or first 1/3 of that book. If you will, we don't know the middle or the end. So, we can say why didn't he bring him back in 4? I mean, maybe his plan was to bring him back in 5. We don't know. At this point. So I'm just saying. Now he may not have, but I'm just saying we can't just say because he wasn't in 4 that means Wes was dead. Because Wes was going to do it in 3. That was the plan. They had to shelve it.
Yeah,
and then they came with the new trilogy.
That was the perfect time to bring him back. They already had him lined up, ready to go. Mm-hmm. All they had to do was just write a story with him in it. Why didn't they? It would have been much better to have him. I would have preferred back then, much better to have him return as the killer rather than Roman, or even him and Roman teaming up together. There was no better time than Scream 3.
I agree. That's why they were going to do that. That was plan A.
And there's never even been a reference of him being alive. Like, even the little Easter egg in this wasn't a reference that he was alive. It was exactly what everybody does. Like, could Stu come back? Is it a possibility? Could he survive?
So, well, and I'll say this too. I gotta say one more thing. Wait, let me just. I have to say one thing, and then I'm done.
I'll jump in. Okay.
Yes. So another reason why that we didn't. Hey, one of y'all started this. Knight, you started this, so it's your fault. It's your Knight's fault. Jake was fault last time. So I just have to say this last thing is that one reason why they may not have rewritten that with Stu is because Kevin couldn't rewrite the movie. Remember, he had to bring Aaron Kruger in because
that's true.
Because Kevin Williamson had written it with Wes, they written it together. It was done. They had to shelve it. Now they had to bring a new writer in, and it just would not have been the same. So that's the deal. So, all right, I'm done. I rest my case, gentlemen. And hashtag Stu lives. Bring Stu back. Hashtag Stu is alive. It's going to happen. It's a done deal. And you don't reference alive people when you know they're alive. You don't need to. Cheers.
I'm just having the time of my life in the chat right now. I just hope you guys know that.
I'm done. I rest my case.
Jake went to the audience. He's like,
I'm in
this stuff on stage.
Can you, hey, Knight? I don't know how the comments work on StreamYard, but can you bring up the one that I just said about Fate?
Oh gosh. Dang. No, not that one.
Yo, this
here it is.
You suck, Jake.
Thank you for putting that up on screen for me. I appreciate it.
Oh, that was fun.
Shots fired.
All right, next. Let's go. Next, moving on. Let's go.
Let's go to this, man. Let's talk about the OG3 as far as what we thought of their performance. Obviously, we got to talk about Dewey, and then we can move on to the reveal and motive and stuff like that. So, Jake, since you had to go into the audience for about 10 minutes, I'll let you start. What did you think about?
You shouldn't
Courtney?
be allowed back in.
You abandon us, Jake.
Hey, look, can I say something? As this is going on, it's like Jake's just like, come on, guys. What the hell? This is great. All right, so what do you think about
I just love that we're 47 minutes into this, and we talked about the opening kill for like 10 minutes. That's it. We still have almost 50 people watching this. This is awesome. Like, I don't know how, but that's great. No, I'm kidding.
Lots of Stu love, man.
Let me say one thing too. Let me say one thing too. But that's kind of what we kind of envisioned this to be. Is that when we're live like this, these are basically us having conversations that we would have with each other. The only difference is that other people get to see it. So hopefully you guys that are watching this in the chat and watching it on replay, hopefully you're enjoying it, because to me, it's fun to be able to talk with obviously my friends, these other YouTubers, and have all these different things mixing together. And just that's what makes this so much different than even for my usual live streams. My usual live streams are a little bit more structured than this. So I actually enjoy this quite a bit, to just be having a conversation. So anyways,
I agree. I'm totally just messing with you guys.
I know. But I was just saying that from the chat.
Yeah, but that's the beauty. Even when we're not on camera, this is exactly how we talk. This is exactly what we do to each other. We're at it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, can I give a disclaimer real quick about that? Just because I know most of the people here I see are very familiar. They know us now. But that exchange you guys just saw with Fate and I, that was fun. That was all in fun. Like, we're not like this. We actually at all. That was completely fun. I enjoyed it. Yes. And we are friends. We talk offline. It's just, so I just don't want anyone to ever get the impression that like they think this is like we're actually adversarial or some ridiculous thing like that. It is not that at all. It's just we're having fun.
That's what's great about this, Steven, is that we can disagree and not be toxic towards each other. Everyone should take something away from this.
Beautiful. Dude, Jake, you're the man. See, that's a lesson of how you can have differing views on the same film and franchise, and it's okay. It doesn't have to be you're wrong. It's like it's okay.
Right. I mean, despite that, Fate is still kind of an idiot. But anyways, let's get on with this. OG3, right? Okay. No, but anyways, without letting anybody without letting anybody retort to that last statement, but getting into the OG3s for this movie, yes. No, honestly, I did love the way the OG3 were handled in this movie. I think some people maybe didn't, and that's fine. They did kind of take more of a backseat on this film, but they were still important to the plot, I would argue. Like, if you didn't have, like I just said, if you didn't have Sydney or Gail in that ending scene, Sam's a goner, dude. She's like by herself with her sister who's injured. And yeah, Tara does get an awesome scene at the end with one of my favorite lines in the entire movie, but she wouldn't have been much help otherwise. She's tied up in that room upstairs. She wasn't going to be much help. But yes, the OG3 were wonderful in this film, I think. And the thing that I feel like we have to talk about first and foremost is rest in peace to, honest to God, one of the best characters in horror movie history.
Yes.
Dewey Riley, man.
Yes.
What a man. What an absolute man. Just look at him. God, I bet he smells good.
He probably
got
does.
that Old Spice on. He's rocking the Old Spice.
Old Spice.
Oh,
Bringing
yeah.
it back. Can I? And I don't want to cut you off, Jake, but you guys know how I was praying that Dewey was going to make it out of this, and I was wrong.
Yes.
Although I was a little upset that they gave it away in the trailer so easily. That was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
But I think that was deliberate.
There was a lot of things.
I guess so.
There's a few things that I felt were translated that we all were theorizing, but like honestly, we talked about it so much that I was like, there's no way any of this is gonna happen. Like, these are fun things to talk about, but that's not gonna happen. And it happened. Like, and it was like, what? Oh my God. That like, it was still all such a shock to me, despite the fact that we had talked about it before. Like, it was still like, I can't believe they really did this. We talked about it like it was like forbidden fruit to touch something like that, to kill Dewey, to have a character who's a descendant of one of the past killers. I like the Billy reveal was shocking to me. I couldn't believe that they actually went that route. And then they just keep, I mean, the surprises just keep coming throughout this whole movie. Yeah. And I mean, the way that this film is set up is a little weird and much different from the other films. But I just loved that it just never stopped rolling with the surprises all the way through. And the biggest one for me was I loved the fast pace of this whole movie. The kills were brutal, but then like, okay, we're talking about OG. I don't want to get too far off. But the biggest surprise for me was when Amber shoots Liv in the face. Dude, that shocked. I mean, that was honestly shocking. Me too.
That was because welcome to Act 3.
Yeah. What a great. I mean, what a great scene. What a great line. Oh my God. I mean, I still have goosebumps just thinking about that scene. It was awesome. One last thing, and I'll pass the torch. See what I did there? I think it was really important to have Sidney Prescott not just take a back seat on this film, because yes, she had a smaller role, but she did still end up being the badass character we know and love her as. I feel like you could have written this movie where maybe they just show up at the end, like the new Ghostbusters film, and it's like, oh, that's cool. Hey, that's sweet to see them in one last scene again. You could have done that with this film, and fans would have been like, okay, whatever. But they actually had them be relevant to the plot line. They actually had Sidney have a few scenes that were badass. I think her shooting through the doors is so inventive and so she has been through this shit too many times to be messing around with some new young killers again. It's great. I think it's really set up well. They did right by all three of the OG characters. And maybe I know some people will disagree with the whole Dewey thing, but I think they handled it well, man. I mean, what else could they have done with this story? You know, I'm okay with it. I know, Knight, you probably disagree with that, but what do you like? How do you guys feel like the OG3 were handled?
Well, let me just say, just to answer that, I understand, you know, we'd always said that someone was going to go. We knew at least one of them would go. And like I've always said, the smart money was on Dewey. And I can understand why they did it, you know. And I think they did a good job with it. And by the way, David Arquette was easily, the best performance, like easily. And not to say that everyone else was bad, but I'm just saying David Arquette nailed it so well. It was great. Everything he did was just great. And it made me miss him even more. And when he had that scene where he turns back into the hallway and, you know, he's talking about, you got to shoot him in the head and the elevator doors closed. I'm sitting beside Corey and I'm like, no, I said, no. And that's when I knew what was going to happen.
Did anyone else think that Ghostface was going to come up and stab him from the back, like in all the other movies? Because I did. Like when he was talking in the elevator, he's like, "You got to shoot him in the head." And there was there was like a couple moments of that. I was like, Ghostface is about to come up and stab him in the back, and then the door shut, and I was like, oh no, this is it. This is how he's gonna go. And it just, I think as far as the way they killed Dewey though, was, in my opinion, the best way you could. I mean, because he set it up prior. He said, like, I'm a liability. I walk with a limp. I have nerve damage. I'm old. He set up that, like, there's no way that he's going to be able to fight off Ghostface. Then we get to that scene. He manhandles Ghostface, as he should have, because it was Amber. So, he bullied her around, even with the knife and everything. He, boom, not today, kicks her off, all this stuff. And he basically whoops her ass, and she's standing there, laying there dead. And he goes back, and it was just like, oh, and then he gets back, the phone rings, he looks down, boom, and at that point it was over. And then we get the greatest side, which I thought fit that scene better than what we thought it was going to be, which was It's an Honor. I thought that fit Dewey's death much better. Not that it wouldn't have been great to see that with Sydney. It made sense with Sydney too, like, hello Sydney, it's an honor. That made sense, but I felt it was much more fitting given that Dewey died, and like that, being that Ghostface that killed him, it is an honor. And that Ghostface made sure he was dead. She didn't just stab him and like stab him a couple times. No, she stabbed him, ripped up, like, I mean, she gutted the guy, like, to make sure that there was no way he was alive. And something else that I want to talk about, and I wanted to make a whole video on, but I think it's important. I've seen a lot of people talking about how Dewey might not be dead, that they only showed one body bag, but there was another. People, you need to understand that entire moment was made to focus and symbolize Dewey. The reason there was only one body bag being carted out is because it was set up for Gail's reaction, for her to see that body come out, and it being known that was Dewey. Like, they're not going to bring a body bag out and then bring out another one and have no, they set it up perfectly for that moment. And in that same breath, one thing that really bothered me that I really wish we got was Sydney's reaction. Now, we said that, and we talked about it briefly in the last live stream, but I've seen the movie again, and it really was disappointing to me that we didn't get a Sydney reaction in real time. Her getting a phone call, her seeing it on the TV, whatever the case.
I think that was a missed opportunity, because it really, to me, and that was one thing that we on my channel we talked about in our spoiler talk, and actually Coriander was really big about this, is she felt that was a bad thing, not having more of that reaction from Sydney because of how close they are. Exactly. And I agree. I think that would have added more weight to that point in the story. It would have added more weight to Dewey's death. It definitely would have added more weight for Sydney as a character, because, I mean, in my opinion, not to jump around, but Sydney had some great moments, some badass moments, but I like you said, Fate, I thought that she was going to be in the movie a little bit more, not a lot more, but maybe about, even if it was like another 5 to 10 more minutes, I'm okay with it as far as how much time she was in the movie. I wanted to see more of her, but I understand all the balancing. But I definitely think it would have been great to have a little bit more weight in that reaction to Dewey's death. I get it. She's been through this many times. I had someone that said in my comments that, she kind of knew what could happen. She knew that he was the hero type. They've been down this road before. She's a little bit more grizzled herself. I get that, but still, I just think it would have made everything better in that moment with a better reaction.
I thought everything was set up beautifully. Even the reason Dewey got involved was because of Sydney. That's another reason why I think it would have been so important to have her react. Obviously, she wouldn't have known that she was the cause of that, but for us from the audience, I think it would have really hit. Like, the only reason Dewey got involved was because of Sydney. Because Sydney said, "I'm glad that they have you to protect them." And you see Dewey's face, like, oh yeah, you're right, Sid. Like, and all that thing. And you got it. David Arquette was phenomenal. That entire phone call scene was incredible. I mean, where he's shaking and he's like, "Come on, Dwight, like, get it together," and he sends it. And then that moment, I was cracking up when he's like, I shouldn't have sent that smiley face, And like, I was like, that's great. Like,
it was so Dewey, wasn't it? So Dewey,
it was so in character. All their lines are so well written too. Like, when you have new people on board, you're scared that like maybe they don't write the old characters the same way. No, everybody was written really well. to comment on the Sydney thing though, I will say, yeah, like she has been through this a few times, so that's kind of why she was like just trying to stay strong until the end of this. She even has that line about, I won't rest until he's in the ground. Like I won't, like, there's no time, like I think in Sydney Prescott's mind, there's no time for her to be sad about it. Maybe at the end of the film, like we do see her kind of start, her and Gail like even have that conversation about how like Gail's going to write a story about Dewey instead of the Ghostface killers this time. They're going to die and be forgotten about, Richie and Amber. But I will say I kind of agree with you guys. Like I think yes, they should have been another scene with maybe like Sydney being upset, but I think it was cool to see Gail just break down into tears. That was upsetting, man. That was just that was heartbreaking, and that kind of did what you guys are saying. You know what I mean? That scene did it for me at least. And I think this movie was already kind of cut down for time. It's a longer movie. They clearly had to cut out some stuff from Vince's death scene because there was more scenes from that we saw in the trailer that weren't in the final cut of the movie.
There was a lot of scenes in the trailer that weren't in the final cut.
My point exactly. I think there's a longer version of this movie that is going to answer a lot of these like minor details that feel a little like this feels a little rushed. I think there's a longer version of this movie out there that's longer than 2 hours that I think will solve a lot of these problems. I'm sure we're going to get that.
I would have been like, I would have rather.
I would have too, but like your general
and just hit home on certain scenes. Like I said, like you didn't need an over the top emotional moment with Sydney. Like I do agree that like Sydney she's boom boom boom. I don't have time. Let's get it. But she definitely would have had an effect, and we should have seen, even if it was just her like taking a moment, like seeing it and just being like, and just like taking a moment to herself, maybe like look at her phone or a text or something and like, okay, let's get to work or something, whatever the case may be, however you went about it. I just think that we deserved that moment. And I get that they had the moment with Sydney and Gail. It was powerful. It was emotional. It was what you wanted, but we needed that moment for Sydney. It didn't have to be long. It could have been brief. It could have been, especially a movie time, a couple seconds seems like minutes. You could have really pumped one out. It wouldn't have made a huge difference. I just think from a fan service of somebody that has grown up with the OG3, like I wanted that. I wanted to see Sydney's reaction. Gail's reaction was powerful. I mean, even the scene where she's sitting there and she's like, I should have stopped him. And Sam is like, well, if you would have stopped him, Tara, my sister, would be dead. And even Gail's reaction was kind of like, so like I lost my husband, I mean, like she didn't say that, but like if you looked at her face was just like, okay, like I just lost everything. And you got to think of, and I love the Gail scene because Gail changed entirely for him. Like she was selfish. She didn't care about it. She'd cut somebody's throat in order to get a story, whatever. And she evolved for Dewey. And then we even find out that Dewey was the one that left, not her. That he left after 2 months, I think she said. And so like they just completely like that whole thing I thought was very powerful. And I loved Gail's reaction. I felt it was
that was one of Courtney's best scenes right there.
It was fantastic. And I mean Courtney was great in it at all, and throughout the whole thing. And Sydney too. I mean Sydney, like even the scene where she's just like, I'm bored, it hangs up. Like that was great. Like I was like, bug. Like
wait. That's so good.
Wait a minute. It was great. Like she didn't have time. She didn't play these games. Like, and she's just like talking back. Like, I've seen this movie. It's like, not this movie. She's like, whatever, like, she's like, yeah, that's what they all say type thing. I loved her character. I do wish that the OG3 were in it a little more. I mean, I understand. Like I said, I didn't think that they would be in it tremendously. It actually went exactly how I relate. I said Dewey's going to be in the front half, Gail's going to be slightly in with him, and then towards the end, and then Sydney will be at the back half, which is exactly how it was for the most part. But I expected the OG3 to be in that. I just expected a couple more scenes, and I think if you would have just had a Sydney reaction, that would have been service enough for Sydney, because I thought her end scene was just so great overall that it was fine, and then you had that powerful moment with Gail and Sydney, which that I wish they would have elaborated on a little more. I wish we would have gotten a little more with Gail and Sydney teaming up, because we've never really got that. For the most part, they've always kind of bumped heads. It's always been kind of awkward. It's always been like, like we're frenemies kind of, but this was like everything, forget everything. This is like, we're going to do this together. Let's go. Right. And it was like they showed up at the house. Gail gets taken out. That's like, that was basically it. Like, and I was like, well, that was kind of lackluster in my opinion. But I don't know. That's just,
Yeah.
I wish we would have gotten a little more with Gail and Sydney, and then also Sydney's reaction. And I would have been like this. That was perfect. Like in my opinion, that was the only thing that I felt was missing.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw in my 2 cents.
Steven?
Yeah, on the OG3, I think one of you guys mentioned it earlier, and I agree that this was by far David Arquette's most powerful performance of the franchise. I think there's no doubt about it. And from the minute we see him in that first scene, you just have this. He's just got this thing about him, and I know as part of it's because we know the character so well, right? We love this character for 25 years, so it's so comfortable to see Dewey and be in that environment. But he showed range, guys. He showed some chops in this movie. Like, it wasn't that, I love the goofy, fun loving Dewey, but this was a different guy. This was that old Dewey was gone. That is no longer who he is because of his choices and all that's happened to him. And it mirrors real life, because as we grow and we live and we experience life and things happen, good and bad, it does change who we are. And so it was nice to see that. I hated to see where he was. I hated to see him in the dumps, basically being quasi-alcoholic, if you will. I mean, the bottles were everywhere, so they're making it very clear that he lives in the bottle. They were all over his house. And so I'm like, you could kind of get the idea that this guy wakes up with the bottle and goes to bed with one too. And so that's really sad. But to see, and when those elevator doors were about to close and Richie was like, no, let's just go. And of course, he's trying to get him away from Amber because he doesn't want to kill his partner, which at that time we didn't know. But whenever he said, no, that's not important. And then Dewey says, it is to me. And the doors close.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, dude.
That was him saying goodbye, basically. He was to me. That's what I got.
Well, and I almost, and this may be a little controversial, and I don't think this was to this degree, but it almost had a feeling to me like, you ever see these movies where I think of Rogue One? Okay, I'm not a big Star Wars guy. I like Star Wars, but at the end of Rogue One, there comes a point where they realize there's no way are getting out, that they're going to die, like the very end. You remember that? And I remember the two people that sat down on the beach together and they just watched it. They knew it was coming. When those doors closed, a part of me felt like Dewey, I almost wondered if Dewey was at the point where he felt like he may not come back from this walk he's about to do. Because he knows the history. He knows that they come back, like he even said. And so I think he was almost to the point where he was resolved to the point that he may not survive, and that he was okay with that. He was like, this is what I'm going to do. My life I don't have much going for me, right? Yeah. And so and I'm not saying he went there expecting to die. I'm just saying I think that he understood the risk and that he accepted it and he was okay with it. But still to see it happen, and I have to tell you guys, it was one thing to get stabbed in the front and gutted up, and then she brings out a second knife, and we do a 2-knife to the back all the way across, and whenever she says, it's an honor, I was enraged. I was furious. It was one thing that I was already, my heart was breaking, but now you're going to make me, now I'm going to feel rage and anger at this person. I wanted them to be destroyed. In fact, the people that I was watching it with in the theater the first time, I'm like, I want her to be, this person to be just destroyed. I was so mad. And so I was so happy that Gail was the one that was able to fire the bullet. They got her over to the stove, and then we got to see that wretched witch burn. And I was celebrating that every minute of her flailing around. And I said, okay, that was crazy. But you guys have really said what I'm on the same page with you guys on the OG3. I really don't have much more to add. I just wanted to mention that on Dewey, and then just that I do wish we'd had more from Sid. I do. I wish the writing would have given her more in the story. But again, this is an hour and a half. This is a 2.5 hour movie that we got crushed down to an hour and 54. So I hope the Blu-ray will come out with a director's cut, like they've done Halloween Ends or Kills with an extended cut. I hope we get that version, because I think that'll be an even better movie. And this was a great movie.
Did you guys see the Halloween Kills extended cut yet?
I have not.
Oh, it flows so much better. It's like
See?
little
There you
tiny
go. Yes.
things. Little. It's nothing
Yes.
too crazy, but man,
Yes.
does that movie flow so much better with the extended
Yes.
cut.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That's good
Fate-
to hear.
I
Fate,
mailed
honestly,
one to
check
Fate.
that out.
I mailed one to Fate.
I watched it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think we're all autographing it.
Signed
We're all signing it to Fate.
We're gonna like ship it around to everyone where we all live, and then we're gonna send it to you. Yeah.
Just
I
we have to
probably wouldn't even
remind
watch
you.
it. I'd probably frame it on my wall because it'd make me so happy. I'd be like, they really did it. I'd be like,
Well,
They really
this
did
is
it.
crazy. Like,
We should do that for real.
We should.
Well, we have to remind Fate how much of an amazing film it was. It was how well made it was.
It was.
So it was a great one. Anyway, we won't get started, but that's a great
Now,
point.
Now, let me just throw this out here as the next part because we got a couple of things I want to touch upon. So, Jake, we're just going around. So, Jake, with the new cast, and we talked about Jenna, anyone else you want to touch upon? Anyone else? And also, we have to touch upon Sam, Melissa Barrera a little bit because obviously,
So I want to say one thing. I saw a few comments in our chat like a minute ago talking about specifically Judy, and I did want to comment on how her character was utilized in this film. And just like in the poster, she has a smaller head than everybody on the poster, which is so weird. She does have a smaller role, which I feel like could have been a little bigger in this movie. But it's another one of those things where it's like there's so much in this movie already. Where would she have fit in to be a more relevant part? She's used in this movie to distract all the people all the cops at the hospital to go over and the chief is dead. We have to go take care of this. We have to figure out what's going on. We have to check out the scene of the crime, which is why you have all those cops there. And there was just one cop watching Tara by her room. It's honestly strategically, it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen Ghostface do. And if you think about it, it's a really genius plan. But that's like why she's in this movie, and that's it. That her and her son are in this movie to be brutally killed by Ghostface so that they could go and attack Tara in the next scene. So strategically, great idea, but I kind of feel like her character is underutilized mildly. But at the same time, dude, what an awesome double kill from Ghostface. Oh my god! I mean, I'm not upset with that at all. She could have lived a little longer, but dude, both those kills were great. The in broad daylight kill, I don't think we've ever seen that really before. Like Randy, I guess, but that was also in a van.
but not on a front lawn. Like, Randy
this is
was
in somebody's
into a van and away from
Yeah.
everybody. But Judy, like to touch on Judy, like the thing is, like I believe I even said it on one of our live streams where I was like, I don't even think they would have brought her back unless they had to. They had to bring her back, and what we got in this film kind of further proved that, I guess, because I just think they wanted to incorporate the OG3 and build and establish their new characters. I think that the only reason they really brought Judy back is because you're doing it in Woodsboro. She was a deputy that survived in Woodsboro. Okay, so now let's make her the sheriff to kind of fit the Dewey story, and you piece that together. And like you said, she became the distraction, and what a great distraction she was. That was the way to die. Like, and yes, I would have loved for them to utilize her more, but she wasn't like, unless they were going to make her be the mastermind, which I thought that would be the case because it made a ton of sense. Outside of that, the only other option would be to kill her quick, which they did. Because I mean, what are you going to use her for, really? Other than being maybe to go investigate some stuff, but even then, it's like what would you rather have? Her just walking around trying to solve the crime, or Ghostface just slaughtering people? That was the thing. Like I feel like my only thing is I feel like there was a lot of questions that are still left unsaid, I guess. Like about her and her character from Scream 4.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that I kind of wish that we would have gotten, but overall, I mean, I figured that, and then the Wes thing. It turns out Wes was only in the film to die, so they could have a party at the end celebrating Wes Craven,
Wes,
which was kind of clever. It's kind of a clever way to, they all do the toast and they all the cheers, and during that party scene is when we get all the voiceovers, all the during the cheers, it's Drew Barrymore, it's Matthew Lillard, it's basically everybody from the legacy from all the Scream films, all saying "For West," which I thought was a beautiful note that I didn't realize until after the film, which is
so many Easter eggs.
Which is beautiful,
it's awesome.
Well, I mean, they even brought back Henry Winkler to
Yeah.
do that. He would,
do that,
and
yeah.
they brought Wes Craven's widow, his wife,
Yeah.
who he was married to when he passed, was there. Patrick Lussier, his protege and editor of the original Scream films. They were all of them. When we hear that big "For Wes," as the whole house, that's all of them speaking to Wes. I did not know that either until we just read the article that came out yesterday, whatever it was,
Right.
and that blew my mind that Radio Silence took that much care. They didn't have to do that.
Yeah,
It
it
could
It's
have been.
so meta. I mean, that's like the
Yeah.
most meta thing, and you would never even catch it unless you like had
No.
known. You know, it's like,
Yep.
what? That's so
Yes.
cool
Yep.
that they did that. Yeah,
So
no,
cool.
Yep. Very
they
cool.
respected
I
his
mean,
legacy very well.
And I think
Yeah.
that was one thing about this movie. I know we've kind of gone all over the place, but I think we all agree that this movie was a good movie.
Yeah.
It was well-made movie. And again, I just got to give them a hell of a lot of credit to be that focused and tuned in to the legacy, to the characters, to the OG characters, to the possibility of new characters, and obviously Wes Craven and Kevin, but Wes Craven to do all of that in a movie, make it work in the mythology, make it flow. Like I'm not gonna lie, guys. Like right now, I'm getting a little emotional thinking about it myself because Wes Craven was one of my favorite directors of all time in any genre. And just thinking about that and thinking about these directors paying respect to someone that inspired them.
Yeah,
that's just it's beautiful. And
It
if
is.
nothing
It is
else,
beautiful.
it's
Yeah.
got to be appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree 100%. What real quick because it was brief in the movie. What is everyone's thoughts on Vince?
Oh, man.
Who?
I mean, yeah,
Vince,
Who are you even talking
I
about?
think I remember seeing
we
him.
touched on it. Jake touched on it briefly earlier, but that was the big thing. Like, is he going to have a significant role, or is he going to just die in the first 10 minutes of the film? And that's kind of what happened. He died in the first 15 minutes of the film, whatever. I mean, the opening scene was like 10 minutes roughly. So, and he died. He was the first real kill, which I think was interesting, it was really fascinating. And it made a ton of sense why they left him off of a lot of the marketing and stuff.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Again, just speaking of marketing, just such brilliant marketing with him. Because you can argue he was one of the most talked about characters in this movie leading up to the film. And then for him to be like, that was a very Wes Craven thing to do. From day one, they announced Vince and no last name or anything. And now we know that he's a mocker. But even then, like, it's like, I don't know. It was, I actually enjoyed it. I thought he had like an incredibly brutal kill. I mean, he got stabbed in the neck and it's dragging. His Ghostfish is brutal. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, I don't know. I thought I would have liked to see a little more from. I would have liked to see that bar scene. I would have actually liked to see like an actual fight between him and Chad, because that's kind of what they were building up to, and then they just kind of like have this argument, and then that was it, and then he's like died. I would have liked a little more, and we know now that there was supposed to be a lot more with him, but I wish some of that stuff would have stayed in the movie. But
yeah, absolutely.
We just got a comment from Necessary Distraction who said, "Why did they cast someone who looks exactly like Skeet Ulrich to be related to Stu?" I 100% agree. Like, I was even saying that beforehand. I'm like, oh, could this be Billy's child? I had a whole video on that about how Kyle Gallner looks so much like a young Skeet Ulrich, and like, yeah, he's related to Stu, I guess. Okay.
Well, I think the reason, Jake, and I saw that too, and I did a video as well saying this is Billy's son, right? Yeah, and I think that's the whole reason. I think that was they purposely wanted to cast this guy and get his face out there so that we could see him, so that we would be talking about him, saying, "Oh, that's Billy's son." They don't give him a last name. It's got to be Loomis. Remember, we talked about it for months.
It works for the promotion of the movie. Yeah,
it does, and it gets us talking about something. It's a whole misdirection. So that's what I think it was. I think it was a deliberately typecast to look like Billy, but we're going to make him Stu's nephew, and instead, and we're going to fool with all you guys and make you think you thought you had a Loomis, but you didn't. You had a Mocker. I think it was kind of brilliant from that side of it. That's how I looked at it. It was intentional misdirection.
Absolutely, and that's what these movies are about, misdirection.
Yep.
That's what it's all about. Let me ask you guys this too, is, so let's talk about the reveal / the motive. Some people have had issue with Amber as one of the Ghostface killers. A part of it has been, the question of how she was portrayed throughout the movie. Also, obviously, her physicality, the believability of that, and so forth. Jake, and I'll start with you. What do you think about the reveal, specifically Amber, but we can talk about Richie as well?
I think that if you have here's my thing, man. If you got a problem with Amber being the killer in this movie, then there are so many other problems with horror movies that don't make sense in real life. I just feel and maybe this is the wrong word to use, but I feel the need to say it. It's a little sexist to not be against Amber being the killer and having any female characters be the killer in these movies, because here's the thing, yeah, maybe it is a little unrealistic for someone her size to be able to kill somebody, but what? We're just gonna make every single killer a dude in these movies? I'm totally fine with it. I think Mikey Madison plays the crazy role really well. I think she has some awesome kills in this movie. Like I said, one of my favorite scenes from the entire film is the fact that she shoots Liv in the face during the reveal. It's so shocking, and it comes out of nowhere.
That was shocking.
And the other thing is there are so many other problems with the Scream franchise that you could focus on, but the fact that a lot of people are focusing on this just gives me these undeniable sexism vibes. And it's just how many people come after Sidney Prescott to kill her? 4 different people come after her. It's so you don't have a problem with that, but you have a problem with the fact that a girl killed one of your favorite characters. I don't know. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's just I'm totally fine with it. I'm totally it does not bother me whatsoever. If you got if that bugs you, those little fine details of horror movies, there's so many different things about Scream that should also bother you then, is how I feel about it. So how do you guys feel about it though?
I actually thought they did it very well, because I have absolutely no problem with the female being Ghostface. My only issue was keep it realistic. Like a lot of people's problems, which I do understand, is that like Scream 4, some of the attacks, if it just didn't add up, brute force, even the way that she was Jill was able to just launch Sydney, she was somebody 6'6" might not even be able to throw Sydney around that way, especially as much as she fought, things like that. This, I felt Amber wasn't doing any major physical overpowering attacks. Most of them were ambush attacks. And to add to the fact that she was the killer, she didn't just stab somebody, throw them to the ground. No, she continuously, just that psychoticness, the craziness. I thought they did an excellent job of having it be believable, and not taking away from that. Because that was always my thing. I don't have a problem with it. I love the idea of a female killer. There's tons of females that have killed people throughout history. There have been female serial killers. And that's the thing. People act like only men have ever killed anybody. No, women kill people all the time. Women overpower men all the time to kill them.
Do. Can I say one thing about that too? I don't mean to cut you off, but being a martial artist, so I've been around a lot of women, and I could tell you guys right now, one of my good friends for years is this really short lady, 5'2", maybe 130 pounds, maybe. And I'm telling you, that girl is strong. I mean, she is strong. And I'm not even talking about skill as far as fighting, but just physically, she's strong. So, I think people also have to realize that, strength can be deceptive. Absolutely, it really can. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. But you're right. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and yes, we do have to keep some realism in it, and I felt like this Scream did that. I felt like this Scream, like I've always said, my issue in Scream 4 wasn't Jill. I thought Jill was fine. My issue was Charlie, because they had these just unrealistic kills that neither of them could realistically pull off unless they're benching 300 pounds, which yes, strength is relative, but I mean there's still a realistic aspect, but I felt like this really did a great job of keeping it believable. Amber, I mean, you can make an argument Richie killed nobody. I think even in my live stream yesterday I did on a Scream Talk, I believe Blecka was the first one to really point that out, and I was like, yeah, you're right. I agree with you. I mean, because Richie was attached at the hip to Sam pretty much the whole movie. The only times that they were separate was when Sam left Richie. And even Richie was like, you know the rules of horror. You're not supposed to leave. You're not supposed to separate. Whatever. Like Richie was at her hip the entire time, and most likely Richie was the one that attacked Sam, which it had to have been because Judy Hicks said, I was interrogating Amber at the time, so it couldn't have been her. So it had to have been Richie that attacked Sam. And then even the opening attack, even if it was Richie that was involved, it didn't make sense because one, did he really drive from Modesto? Granted, who knows how far that was exactly? I mean, could have been 30 minutes, but even then, you're telling me he went 30 minutes to Woodsboro, an hour or whatever to do the attack, left, went back to Modesto, all before Sam realized, like, where did Richie go? Because like they were together, they were living together, all that stuff. Like that's the whole thing. And so I think that you can make an argument that Amber did most of the killings, and all of the attacks were very brutal. None of them were over the top ridiculous to where I was like, there's no way that that's a female. Even some of the scenes, it looked like it was a female under Ghostface mask. Like even that scene, like there's even the scene where he's fighting with Ghostface, he overpowered her. Like Dewey overpowered her, which makes sense because it was Amber. He was able to overpower her. They kept it so realistic. It was wonderful. And even even the scene where he's fighting her off against the wall. They're the same height, but he's hunched down. So that means he's taller than her when they're standing up straight. Like I don't know. I thought they did an excellent job. I like even the video for the opening scene, like with Amber, because that was the other thing. Well, Richie had to have been involved because she didn't send Tara a live stream. She sent her a video. That recording could have happened days before, and set that up. And then the killer even says, here's the question: did I make it in your house before you were able to reactivate the alarm or whatever? And then boom, comes out an attack. So either Amber did like 99% of the killings, if not all of them, or there's a third killer. Dun, dun.
Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun.
There's been a lot of people in the chat talking about a third killer.
I want to do like a full deep dive video on it too, because I think it's a possibility. And
they have a great idea. There it is too. They've got some good ideas.
But sticking with the reveal and the opening scene, like the end scene and all that stuff, like I enjoyed Amber a lot.
Ghostface is not over 6 foot. I'm sorry. I'm reading these comments and it's just like Dewey is taller than Ghostface.
He is taller than Ghostface during that scene.
It's literally like, you rewatched the scene in the hospital. That's what I say.
You can even there's even the image like that was in the trailer of Ghostface fighting off with Dewey, and Dewey is literally bending knees, hunched over against the wall, and Ghostface is still almost the same height as it. Might even be a little shorter. So that tells you right there that Dewey is taller than Ghostface. That's the thing. But I don't know. To stick to the topic at hand is that like I really enjoyed Amber. I thought Richie played the Derek role beautifully. He was more Derek than Billy. And he was consistent all the way up till the end. There was several times for him to say, oh, surprise, I'm the killer, and just played it off as the innocent boyfriend all the way through and through until the very last moment where boom.
And doesn't that feel realistic to you? Like, doesn't that feel like something, if you're really the killer, but you're actually this like nice, charismatic guy, like that's how I feel like it would have played out anyways, is like you were just like, oh, I don't know if this is the right moment to reveal that or whatever. But like Richie is crazy, but he plays off the nice, charismatic boyfriend really well. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
I honestly thought from an overall standpoint, you could argue this was the most realistic Scream. As far as like how Ghostface was, because that was the thing I said, like, and I get it, like Scream has always kind of been this like horror comedy in many ways, but it's always maintained realism. And think of serial killers throughout history. They're usually, they'll stalk their prey, but it's from a distance. And they're not toying with them. They're waiting for the right moment to strike. And then they strike. I mean, think of like the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. He didn't sit there and enter someone's home and no, he was in there killing them and he was out, in and out. That's usually how killers were. Dahmer, like he would, go on these dates and lure them in home and then he would drug them past them, boom, and kill it. Like there was no hesitation. That's why they never really got caught. And I really liked that Ghostface was in and out. The target was there, boom, they killed it. I thought Richie played an excellent job of being that, loving, kind boyfriend. And then even at the end, like they tell you point blank, that they basically like this is almost like a spoof in a way. You know, Richie's like there was no better choice. You know, like because and I liked that. I liked how they basically said we're never going to be able to compete with 96 reveal, so let's just copy it and kind of poke fun at it a little bit. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that that it was basically that. It was like, you know, you're the boyfriend, all that stuff. It was the reveal. You had Amber as like just this psychotic, crazy person. They even plugged Reddit and all that stuff in it. You know, I met him on a Reddit forum, all that stuff. Like they had toxic fandom, all of that stuff. I really thought it played a great role. Now, the only thing that I didn't like about the you know, Act 3 or whatever, I felt like it was really rushed. I felt like they should have took the time to spread it out a little more, get it more, you know, hit home on certain things a little more. But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought the killer reveals were great. I thought, you know, it was the best choice. I mean, I didn't think Richie was going to be the guy. I didn't think it made sense. In my final prediction video, I went with Amber, but I thought Richie was going to be that red herring. I thought he was exactly the character that I thought he would be the entire film. And I thought that at the end they would have that moment where, like you got to make that, which they did. You know, you have Sam where she holds the knife and is like, where he's like, there's always a second kill, and she holds the knife and all that stuff, and so, you know, that was I thought was going to be the moment where like, oh, and then I thought that there would be somebody else revealed, but then at that point it was just like, who's left? Like everybody else is dead. Like so, I was like, it has to be Richie. Like, if there really is two killers, I was like, so it has to be Richie. But I don't know. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I thought the killers were great. Like, could they have done something better? Of course, but you can make that argument with every Scream. Like that's the thing. People are always like, well, it wasn't creative enough. Like, what were they supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like how
it
many
wasn't creative enough.
Yeah, how many different ways were they supposed to make a killer? Like, you know, like I think that they told you in the movie. The reason we're the killers is because this is the best choice. You know, people are like, oh, well, their motives were silly. Their motives were exactly what the movie was about. The craziness, the toxic fandom, the over-the-topness, you know, just, you know, being obsessed and critiquing everything, you know, and like just having that obsession. It was Scream 4 in many ways, and people didn't complain about the reveal on that. You know, not most people. Most people were okay with the motive on that. It really was. It was a bit of all of the motives combined. You know, it was a bit of jealousy. It was a bit of, you know, wanting to recreate the films. I thought it was fine. Like, yes, could they have done it a little better? I would have maybe liked, like I said, I would have liked, you know, maybe Chad and Liv. I think just, you know, aesthetically, I think they would have been the most like looking Ghostface, like kind of like Mickey was. But I thought it was fine. I thought they did a great job.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
I want to throw one thing in on the ending because I agree with most of everything you guys have said. And I know we're getting a little bit long on time, so we're going to start wrapping this up. So there's no way we're going to cover everything in one live stream. I think everyone knows that. There's stuff we haven't even touched yet that we could go into. So much. So I'll just make my little short comments here about the ending. That I wasn't a fan of the character of Amber until pre-reveal. She just was this negative, always angry, frowning all the time, bickering at people. I maybe saw her smile 2 times in the movie, and there was no charismatic nature to her personality. Now, I'm not talking about the actor Mikey Madison. I'm talking about how the character was written for Tara. And because I know she could deliver on whatever the lines were and the personality. So I wasn't a fan of her at all until the reveal, and then I knew who she was. Because she was great as a killer. I mean, I think she was fantastic in the kills, and just the craziness in the kitchen, how she was just so giddy about like, yeah babe. And she was all like just so into being what she was doing. And that was her true self finally. It almost felt like she was holding back because that's who she really is that person in the kitchen. And the shot Liv, you know, that from the reveal on, that was my point. So, Richie again, golly darn it! I did not want him to be the killer. Such a great character, man.
Jack Quaid was fantastic.
Oh, yeah, he was. He really
so
was.
Good. He still is my most favorite of all of the new cast. I thought his performance was the number one shining star of all the new people, and he was comfortable. He was in control of his character role, and he was natural. It was all the things you want, and if they could have done so much if they let him live and brought him back. He would have been. Wouldn't he have been great in 6 just to be there? And
he would have been a great, strong presence for sure.
He would for the show
and
as well as for Sam.
Name. And he's a notable name.
And he's a notable name.
Shout out to Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan.
Bro, no doubt, man.
I made an excellent actor.
But one thing I want to end with on the ending, this is more about just the motive. I have no problem with the motive that we got. However, I did leave the theater both times. Of course, the first time mostly because I knew what was going to happen. The second time, but I left there wanting more from the reveal, from the motive. I felt like this was okay, but there's got to be another piece coming. I kept waiting for either another person to pop up or a mastermind to come out from the corner, or there to be some kind of a indication that there's a deeper thing going on here with a cliffhanger, or just in the motive itself, because it was so marketed like, the killer is, related to things of the events of the past. And the biggest event of the past was Sam being Billy's daughter, but that really didn't tie into the motive other than her being featured in the movie that they wanted to redo for the next step. So I just felt I felt like, I wish the word I use is depth. I wish there would have been a deeper component to the motive than just the toxic fandom.
Is it not? But like how they said when they're giving their whole villain speech, they say that there's no movie like the original, so let's try to remake that. And they tried, they tried to follow all the beats of the original Stab movie, so to say. They had the third act at Stu's house. They set that up perfectly. That's what they were trying to do, and that's the connection to the original. Is how I felt about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
It's not like in your face, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, we're Stu and we're the sons of Billy and Stu. It's not like in your face like that. It's more of a subconscious reveal, and I appreciated it. I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah. Also, go ahead. What were you saying? I was just.
Oh no. Go ahead. Go ahead, man.
Did you want to rebut to that though, Steven?
No. All I was going to say was that's a good point. That perhaps the connection to the past was not literally to the Sydney's life or anything else. It was more in the connect to the past of the original Stab movie, which I guess that that is a point that I hadn't really considered, because when I hear him talking about connecting to the past, I'm thinking literal. I'm literally talking about the characters of the past, not just the film Stab 1. So I mean, I guess if you look at it that way, it makes sense.
The whole movie was meta. The reason they were referencing Stab is because Stab in Scream is what Scream is to us. So they weren't talking about the direct path. They were talking about 96, but it was an audience perspective in many ways.
I get right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. And I was expecting it to not to be that. I was expecting it to be more in the literal character, actual history of the characters.
It was too meta for you, is what you're saying. It was too meta. You wanted it to be more natural.
I would like to have been what it was, but a little bit more. Not either or. Yeah, I think what it was great, and I do like the meta-ness of that. But that's why I kept going back to Judy. I'm like, she's connected to the past, and
that's what I thought too. That's what that
would have been. Right, it would have been so cool, because for her to have had this extra piece to the past. So I was coming from that angle of it. So I guess, because I was expecting that or hoping for that, I left wanting more. But at the end of the day, I'm fine with the ending, the motive. I think it was fine. I don't have a problem with it. And it's just, I just want to see where this is going to go. And we're not going to talk about Scream 6 now, but with Sam and Tara being both alive, and of course Chad and Mindy, but I really hope that this Billy blood in her remains a thing. I still want to see Sam, having a struggle within herself of giving in to this Loomis side of her versus her Carpenter side. And I want to see that develop more. And I think that you could take that to dark places, or you could not, or you could keep it like it was there where she's going to overcome it. I think either way works, because Tara's alive. Since Tara's alive, you could actually eliminate Sam and still have a good final girl.
Yeah, you could actually kill him.
Right.
You could actually kill Sam now.
Yep.
You could kill Sam.
Yep.
But
that's an advantage.
The two things I wanted to add real quick was, one, I loved how Amber, when she was got, she played the whole victim thing. Oh,
yes.
you know, I love.
I was
that.
radicalized.
And then she, and then
That
once
was
she got
great.
the upper hand on Gale, she flipped. Like, oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I killed him, and he cried like a bitch or whatever she says, something along those lines. And
Oh
I was
my
like, that's
God.
great. And she's like, I can't believe I get to kill both of you. Like, this is so great. Like, and all that. I love
Yeah.
that. The other thing is too is I loved how Sydney and Gale knew she was full of shit immediately.
Yes.
Like they, like she came running out, crying and screaming, and they
That
looked at her.
was
They're
great.
like, "Nope." And then
It's a trap.
Amber's like, Amber's like, screw this, and boom, pulls the trigger. I was like, that was
that
great.
was
Like, they
great.
knew there was no like, wait a second, is this like? It was just like, nope, that's bullshit.
I was
Yeah.
glad that they showed. I was glad that they showed that their experience has made them, fairly smart
yeah.
in these
Like, they
situations.
knew, like,
That's
like,
true.
No,
Yeah.
this is nonsense. Like, I love that. I really did. I
Absolutely.
love that. But
Yeah.
what were your thoughts tonight on the whole thing?
The motive was fine with me. I understood it. I thought it was pretty crafty. The reveal was fine. I love Jack Quaid. And I think Amber, she was okay throughout the movie. I understand that's how she was written. I think you were saying that, Steven. I understood that that's how she was written. But the reveal, when she shot Liv and then just how she was like flip-flopping back and forth, that was really cool. That was some of her best moments in the movie for sure.
Yep.
Absolutely, and Steven, you touched upon something that I had said too, was that, at the end of the movie, I almost had to turn off my YouTuber brain to kind of say, you know what, let me just accept the movie for what it is and not so much what I wanted to project it to be.
Yes.
Which people do that all the time, even as fans. I've done that. I did that as a kid with certain movies. Oh, I wanted to see, whatever. I didn't want Yoda to die. What the hell, So whatever.
Yoda.
So, but at the end of the day, for the movie that we got, the impossible task that was given to Radio Silence, I was very happy with the movie. I was on the edge of my seat through many scenes. I was screaming at the screen. I was getting teary-eyed. I was happy for certain characters. I was sad for others. That's what a movie is supposed to do.
Yeah.
So for me,
True.
I enjoyed it, man. I really did, and I'm even more excited to see what they're going to do with the next movie, because again, they kind of got this out of the way. Now the sky
I think it has the
potentially
potential
is
to be the best.
the limit.
I think it has the potential
really
to be the
does.
best movie we've gotten.
And also the most different, maybe.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's what I'm kind of looking forward to.
Me too.
You know what? A good for the end scene, it was elevated. That's a good way to describe it.
Oh man, you had to go
I see what
there.
you did.
It was
Yeah.
I see what you
because
did.
it was this meta elevated twist in many ways, kind of like what they alluded to the whole movie. I mean, they basically told you what the end scene was going to be throughout the entire movie, and then when we got there, it was exactly what was kind of described the whole way. I mean, Richie even says point blank, he's like, Dewey told you. And he caught me in the first 30 seconds or whatever, the first rule, and you still didn't believe it. I made you believe your sister was involved, like all that stuff. And like they told you the entire story, the entire film, what was going to happen, how it was going to play out. And unless you were really paying attention and focused, you wouldn't have, it would have went over your head, which is kind of the elevated element.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, the first time I watched it, I enjoyed it. I did, but I was a little disappointed. The second time I watched it, I really understood a lot more. Like it made more sense, and I actually really enjoyed it a lot more. And I encourage anybody, not that you have to see every movie multiple times to really get a grasp on it, but I really think Scream is one of those films that I think you do.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
do.
You look at 96. You can watch 96 today and you'll find something you didn't know. And we've all watched that a million times. And I think this was a lot like that. This was a modern version of 96. It's exactly what this was, And I thought they did an excellent job. And the more I watch it, the more I liked it. Like, and that's, I think that's going to keep being the case. The more we watch it, the more we're going to enjoy it. But
Can I also just say real quick about when you think back to Randy, Randy was always right. Remember, Randy always predicted the killer, and wasn't it cool that Dewey took that role in this one?
Yes.
And he also predicted, number one, the love interest right off the bat. Yep. And they mirrored how Randy predicted it, and Randy was always right. And Dewey was right. And I just think that was really cool that they did that. Yeah.
Yep. I agree. It was very, very cool. No
So,
doubt.
do we have any final thoughts on this movie?
I was
going
gonna
to
say, real quick, we should talk about Sam because she is the final. I mean, I know we could talk about more in another live stream, but I think Sam is the one thing we got to talk about more than anything. You know what I mean? Because she was the final girl in this movie. And so, who wants to take it away?
I'll start it off. I'll start it off. I think that Sam was a good character. I think Melissa Barrera did a pretty good job. I think as the movie went on, I got more invested in her as a character. I think also she was kind of written that way because, when she first comes on screen, she's still, disconnected, so to speak. She's obviously disconnected from her sister, and she's brought into this situation and she has to reveal this secret and so forth and so forth. So I think she was written that way as well. But I will say this, the reveal about being Billy's daughter, the only thing that it's as a fan, I couldn't have done a better job writing this movie, obviously. But I wish there was a little bit more of the back and forth with her sanity, having the connection with Billy. Again, I know they cut some stuff out of the movie. Maybe this could have been some of it, who knows? But it would have been nice to see a little bit more struggle, maybe halfway through the movie. That would have been fun to see, but I get it. But overall, I was happy with her. I think that she had some really cool scenes. I really liked her in the end. And that's pretty much about it. I'm happy. I'm interested to see where they go from here because they really opened a big door, and I hope they're going to step through that door because, you could go anywhere with this whole Billy thing. You really could.
Yep.
What do you think, Steve?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll give my closing thoughts here. I agree a lot with what you said. I warmed up to her, and the first time I watched the movie, as the movie went along, I liked her more and more and more and more to the end. And and I hate to say this, but when she unleashed herself onto Richie, it was the final nail that just clinched it that I liked her. That sealed it for me. But as you said, Knight, I think after I watched it the second time, I did realize I think this is on purpose because she's struggling. They show her taking pills all the time, and she's seeing Billy. She's struggling. She's seeing and I really believe that she shouldn't be someone who is all opened up, extroverted because of all that she's going through. She's very, very tight-lipped. She's not, she's in a very difficult place in her own mental health, and so it makes sense that they did it this way, and I appreciated it more the second time. The first time I was like, "Oh man, come on, girl, you got to pick it up now. You're supposed to be the new lead." But even in the first one, again, it got better as she got more on further in the film. But I appreciated it more the second time. So what I expect is the second movie, I believe that we're going to see that version of Sam that we saw at the end, and I think it's going to be, as Fate mentioned, I think it has a chance to top this movie just because of the charisma, the more personality that Sam's going to bring in 6. Now that she's kind of out of her shell, if you will.
Yeah.
So but overall, I'm happy with her. I still think Tara. Don't sleep on Tara being the final girl when this is all trilogy's done. I'm telling you, they're showing us that if she hadn't done that whole knife with the hand and all that, I think that it would have been. I would feel differently. But they showed us that, and I'm not ready to discount that as just a thing. I think that there could be telling us that there's a savagery in her that it may come out to be her demise at the end of the day.
Ooh,
could be
interesting.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a million ways that you could go with Sam as a character. I mean, you could ultimately have her, go to the dark side, as I believe Knight mentioned earlier today. Things like that. Like you could have her. You already laid the groundwork to have her character go any direction you want, and I enjoyed Sam as a character. I thought Melissa Barrera did an excellent job, but there were definitely scenes that I wish hit more that didn't really quite hit. Like the scene now that we can, because I talked about this in the first one we did without the spoilers. Now we can actually talk about it. Was like the scene where her and Tara are talking back and forth, and you just see Tara breaking down. And you feel that emotion coming from her, and Sam's just almost like she was just very stoic throughout the movie. She's very just like blank, and even like her emotion was like it was hard for her to draw that emotion, which it kind of makes sense as the film goes on. Once you realize what's going on with her, it clicked for me. I was like, okay, I get why she is the way she is, and Melissa Barrera is actually portraying it that way beautifully. She did. She did the way that they wanted her to portray Sam. I thought she did a fantastic job. I just think that you could have added a little more depth from an acting prowess to her character and still got the same point across. I felt like you could have had Sam hit on specific scenes. I mean, the only real emotion we got to really see her just enact was when she just went berserk. Like she just unleashed, as somebody said, or multiple of you said, like, and that was really the only time, because all the times were emotional, even like the moment where she's just like, I want to help my family. Like, it was very plain. It was very like, it wasn't like, all I want to do is help my family. It was just like, all I want to do is help my family. Like, and there were scenes that I really wanted to hit with the emotion. I wanted to hit like this, like the impact. Let me feel the gravitas of the situation. And I felt like they didn't really get that across. So I felt like it was really lackluster. And I think that that's why many people, are gravitating towards Tara rather than Sam, because Sam was able to give that emotion. She was able to showcase the different levels of her acting and stuff like that. And I'm hoping they give Sam a chance to do that in Scream 6, so we can finally really like see, like, is she worthy of being a character going forward?
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
No, I was reading the comment. It's not you, Fate. I was just reading the comment. I'm sorry.
I've just never heard someone say that before.
I haven't either.
What was the comment?
It's Explorer's comment, Fate. Night. It's Explorer's comment. Tara did steal the. Yeah, there it is. It just caught me off guard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, same. No, I was just like, what?
I'm like, was that before? Was that before or after her hand was bloodied up from trying to roll down the
exactly.
Which part was cute?
Yeah, that whole part is like, oh, that hurts, and it's just like,
you could really feel her pain in that scene.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
you really got to see. I wanted to see from that. You really got to see the emotion in many different levels from Tara.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that. And I thought Tara. That's why I, in my opinion, Tara was the best character in this film. Because she had such a range. She had scenes where she'd laugh at. I mean, she had the best line, the most quotable line in the entire movie. I still prefer the Babadook. Like, that was brilliant.
That's so good. That's so good.
All that stuff. Like,
I love that.
Remember when she told Sam, after Sam revealed the past about the diaries?
Yeah.
And she was like, get out of my room, and you could just see her welling up and like the tears. And it was so believable. It felt
very believable.
And then even when she related to her, she's just like, it wasn't that you can't choose your parents, you can't choose your past. So she's like, that's not my problem. The problem is you abandoned me, and you could feel it.
Yes,
I felt it when she was relaying and saying, like, you left me, you abandoned me. Like, I didn't have any involvement in that, and Sam was just like, I wanted to protect you. And she's just like, how? Like, I really felt that dialogue back and forth. And, it's not that Sam didn't do a great job reciprocating that. There was just, like I said, I would have liked a little more range from Sam as a character in the film. But I mean, I still enjoyed her. I thought it was great. I just think that hopefully we get to see more in Scream 6 is my only thing.
I want to say about Sam's character, like, and this was actually just brought up in the chat. She's being medicated, so like her emotions would be a little more dulled down. Stunted. Because if you watched, like, I watched In the Heights with Melissa Barrera. Yeah, and she said she did drugs.
She said she was heavily in drugs. So
because like Melissa Barrera is a great actress. I hate people discounting her because of this performance, which dude. I mean, I watched like In the Heights, like I was just saying, that Lin-Manuel Miranda thing, and she's really good in that. Like, she's a phenomenal actress, man. I think that she was playing that on purpose though, to try to do like the wooden like serial killer vibes. And if you think about it, Billy Loomis isn't like super like in your face. Like, Stu Macher is kind of his antithesis. You know what I mean? You have Stu, who's really charismatic, crazy, and in your face,
over the top. Yeah.
And then Billy Loomis is a little more reserved, and he's a little more like he's more of like the creepy and like slow and methodical guy, which I think is why they work so well as killers together. And Sam is kind of playing. I think she's playing that, her character at least. That's how I took it, and that's why there was some moments that were kind of weird. But I will say the scenes with specifically her and Jenna Ortega in the hospital, like Steven was just talking about, like, blew my mind. Like, there are little tiny bits of drama in this movie that are just played out so well. The stuff between Courtney Cox and Dewey, those scenes at the hospital, it's just like the emotion is there.
Yeah.
I don't. The people criticizing this film for not having enough character development, that's wild. There's so much.
I know it's a horror
of any
movie
film other than '96.
Here's
And
the
this
thing,
had
guys.
the most character development out of all the.
I know, like,
Scream 4
yes,
had
yes.
Scream 4
I
had
can agree
terrible
with that.
characters other than Kirby. Scream 3 had terrible characters. Many people gravitate towards Jennifer, and many people say that was the Jennifer show. And she wasn't even supposed to be a main focus point. That's how bad the character development was, that this random character basically took over the show. Scream 2 had a little bit more with certain characters, but the majority of them fell flat. Nobody cared that Haley died. Nobody cared, even Cotton was like the center of attention, but they didn't do a great job building him up. They just did a great job with his storyline, integrating him involved and stuff like that. But his actual character development wasn't great. Scream 96 was the only film we got that had real character development, where every character had their shine. Every character had that moment that is memorable. Every character had that quotable line, things like that. And this film was probably the closest to that. Every character got a shine moment, got that dialogue moment, got that comedic moment, whatever, other than Vince, really. But
Vince had zero.
Yeah, Vince didn't have anything. But he was just Ghostface father. That's all he was.
And that's honestly though, that's what most of these new. This is not you said it. It's a horror movie. We know that most of the cast are going to die. So how much do you want to develop new characters and to kill them 30 minutes later?
The only characters you needed to develop were the characters that were surviving. And guess what they did? They built up Mindy. Mindy was fantastic throughout this film. They built up Chad. Chad was fantastic throughout this film. And they built up Tara, who was the best part of this film. And then Sam. Sam was the entire focal point. She got the most screen time. She was the movie for the most part. The four characters that survived, they got the most shine. They developed them the best. There was story behind them. There was, dialogue between them and pretty much everybody.
And you have something from them that you can follow into the next movie.
Exactly.
You have something that you can hold on to.
Like that scene where Mindy is sitting there watching her uncle Randy talk, and then, look behind you. Come on, Randy, look by. And then
she does.
And that was beautiful. That was such. I mean, you want to talk about an Inception moment? That was fantastic. I think they did a fantastic job about this film. The thing is, I think the reason people have a bad taste about this film is it's not your typical Scream movie. And I think many people went into this expecting it to be, this comedic, sort of goofy, because Scream it's closer to a comedy thriller than it is a traditional horror. I mean, Ghostface is clumsy, he's a little goofy. There's always
I don't think comedy's. I think it's more satire. It's not really.
It's as close to comedy as you can get without it being comedy.
With the horror
does that make? But without being comedy, does that make sense?
Exactly.
It's as close as you can get to that without it actually being a horror comedy.
I don't know that I agree with that either.
It definitely is. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Jake.
No. I was just going to say, I hear what you're saying because it does have those comedic moments. It has comedic characters.
It does.
But it's not specifically a horror comedy. You know what I mean?
No,
that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I agree with you there. It's not. It's as. That's why I was it's as close to it without actually being it. Shaun of the Dead is a horror comedy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
This is supposed to be
evil. But
exactly.
But what I'm saying is that it's closer than that. It's closer to a comedy than it is an actual horror, just pure horror movie. It has a lot of
because Kevin Williamson has even said something about this isn't production studios misunderstood my original script. It wasn't supposed to be a comedy. It was supposed to comment on the genre and where it's at right
now. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But it's became that. I mean, like I said, this one, Ghostface wasn't that clumsy, goofy Ghostface tripping over its own feet. Getting better. It was very brutal. It was in and out. We're here. The undertone was very dark. Scream is a very bright movie in many ways. It has very bright moments. This wasn't what Scream has been. This was more of a closer traditional, just brutal slasher than it was than a classic Scream. And I think that's why a lot of people feel this movie failed in that regard. But that wasn't the intentions. They told you from day one, this was going to be a darker, more brutal, just vicious Scream film. Like, they never tried to hide it. They never tried to make you believe something else. Like, they told you what it was going to be. And they established that from the beginning. They established that from the opening scene. You should have been aware from that. And I think that that's the thing. I think people are used to the traditional Scream films, and this kind of went a little more right than left. And I think that that's kind of where people are at, which I actually enjoyed. I like, that made me like this film even more. They didn't just try to recreate Scream. They didn't just try to recreate a Wes Craven film. Like,
you can't. That would have been a big mistake.
Yeah. In many ways, they made their own film. They took what 96 would be today and made it modern. It was a modern horror film, which people, I don't know if it's age, just not remembering what, but people forget 96 was what this movie was back then. Like the brutality, the horror.
It's not as powerful as that film. I don't think anything's going to be as. But I get what you're saying. Like how this film.
I'm not. There's no comparing those. Yeah. I'm talking about as far, like, quality wise. No, 96 in many ways was a perfect film. I'm not saying comparison wise. I'm talking about the tone of this movie is actually very similar to 96 if you equate time. Like, they had the
I see what you're saying.
They had the hardest time in the world to get an R rating for Scream. They had to, or Scream 96. They had to cut most of the film out. I mean, there were things of even the opening scene was a lot more brutal and hectic and crazy. There was like slight nudity in it. There was all kinds of, like, it was a very traditional thing. Like, but unfortunately, we've never gotten that full cut because it's still on Laserdisc. but yeah, the full cut was more brutal. It was
fantastic.
It was much more like this. It was much more like your like typical horror movie back in that era. Where there was slight nudity. There was more derogatory sexual talk. There was all the things that you had in those 80 and 90 movies and Scream, but they had to cut it all out because they were like, well, we don't want to lose the killings and the brutality of this, so let's cut it back a little bit and give this. And that was the end result, which was beautiful in and of itself. But I just think that people were expecting a modern, a traditional Scream rather than a more modern, and we got a more modern. Like, if Scream 1 through 4 never happened, I think this would be the Scream that they would have made in many ways. Maybe slight changes because it's Wes Craven. Assuming Wes Craven, let's just say for argument's sake, he didn't die. This was the first film he created. This would probably be very similar to how they would have went about it. There would have been a lot more Easter eggs and misdirections, but
I think that the biggest thing about this film and why I feel like we need a Scream movie every 10 years to go off of that, Tyler, is that, like, it comments on where we are in a state of, like, just talking about movies, how people feel about movies. And this one especially talks specifically about, like, the toxic people who I think minorly because of the internet have surfaced and now will just shit talk people who disagree with them on their film opinion. That's the biggest point that this movie is trying to get across, and that's what I think is interesting. It's not just commenting on horror as a genre, which this movie does, but it also just talks about movies in general. Like, it comments a lot about, like, the entire film space right now.
Right, and it's not just, like you said, it's not just horror, because, I mean, obviously, there's huge toxicity in the Star Wars fandom. I mean, there still is. I mean, you have it in the MCU, you have it in horror. I mean, it's very, very true. And I think that was one thing, that was something about the motive that really rang true for me. And I was like, wow, okay, this is it's pretty cool in that sense. But anyways, guys,
Woo, this has been fun.
We're gonna get ready to end this up. This was good though, and
it was.
Geez, man. I mean, we could go on about a whole bunch of other stuff too, but
I think we almost have to, guys. Like in our next week's stream, I think we should continue.
Part two?
Yeah, like a part two. So I'm thinking. Yeah.
It sounds
real quick.
Me.
What, at like 1 to 10, where would you scale this movie? Night.
Oh man.
Boy.
Well, if we say that 96 was a 10.
But yeah, let's call that a 10.
Yeah.
Then I would say that I would give this at least an 8, 7.5 or 8. I think this was a very good movie. I know I've said this, and some people might be like, "Oh, how long are you going to say that for?" But I'm still absorbing it, and I've only seen it once, so I do want to see it multiple times too. But I think it was a good movie. It had some things that I wish were done a little bit differently. But all that aside, I really enjoyed it. I liked a lot of the new things that they brought to the table. I liked the new characters. I liked elements of the OG3. I'd give it an 8.
Craven.
Okay. Yeah, I believe I probably, not to sound like I'm copying you, Knight, but I do put it at about an 8. I say it's an 8. I think, and I've only seen it twice, and I still feel like I need to see it 4 or 5 more times before I really can feel comfortable. Like, you break in a shoe, right? You break in a glove. And I'm still breaking in the movie for me. And so I believe that right now I'm giving it an 8. I think that it'll probably stay around that number for me. But I still, in all fairness to the movie, I need another 4 or 5 viewings. So once Paramount Plus, in like a month from now, a little bit over a month from now, once they drop it, I'm watching it twice a day for a week. So I get 14 viewings in 1 week. And I think after I've watched it 15, 16 times, I will feel comfortable in this movie to where I can really, really, really let you know. But that's my first feeling. After two viewings, I give it an 8, and I can't rank it right now. I could, but that ranking will probably change, so I'm not going to rank it right now. It's too soon.
Right.
Well, no one cares what Jake thinks. So,
dang! I care what Jake thinks.
What do you think?
I got your back, Jake.
I think I would give it a 7.5.
You know, you go ahead. You go ahead.
He still cut you off.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I said no one cares what Jake thinks.
Dang.
He had to get me back. I mean, I didn't let him retort earlier, so
that's true.
You know what? I'll let you have that one. I'll let you have that.
I was waiting for no, but seriously, Jake.
All right, what do you think, Jake?
Honestly, I think after I saw it 3 times this past weekend, I'm going again this weekend. I think after 3 times, like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, 9 out of 10. That was so cool. Cause like, I just saw so many things out of this movie that I've been wanting to see from this franchise for a long time. But overall, yes, it is like, I'll be honest, it's my favorite sequel because it does something so wild, like so many things that are wildly different. But I still think it's maybe like an 8.5 out of 10 is where I would rank it personally. I was very shocked by a lot of the things in this movie, and I loved the changes. But overall, it does have its flaws, and it does have some things that I feel like are a little weird and not necessarily perfect, like that original film. So, 8.5.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
I think that this is like I even did a ranking video. I really think that this is 1A, 1B with Scream 2 in many ways. As far as like sequels go, I think it just depends on are you feeling more classic today or are you feeling more modern today? I think that you can make the argument either way. I think that this is arguably the best sequel, and I think that this is arguably one of the best, if not the best, sort of requels, I guess, or reboots to a franchise ever. I mean, because it was able to just jump right in, and it did a great job. And for a 5th film to be as excellent as it was, I mean, that's extremely tough. Think of all the 5th films in horror and movies in general.
Oh man,
I mean,
exactly.
They are usually terrible. They're usually the movies
Friday
that go
Part
straight
5,
to
man.
DVD. Yeah,
direct to DVD, brother. That's it.
They're straight to the bargain bin. And the fact that this movie is even debatable, how you like whether you like it or not is telling in and of itself. But as far as a ranking goes, I don't think I can give it an 8. I think I'd have to give it about a 7.9 or a 7.5.
Almost there.
7.5. And it's because I've seen it several times. I'm really taking it in. Like I think because like I said, Scream 96 was a 10 as far as like scale would go, and so I don't think anything has ever really came close. And like a 9 would be about as close as you can get to a 10. An 8 I feel is like it's you can make the argument it's right there. I don't think this is that. I think that this is better than the other sequels, so I think I have to put it higher. So like I would say Scream 2 is like a 7 out of 10. I don't think it's an 8 because I think it was one of the greatest sequels of any film ever.
Yep.
As far as like film goes, but it still wasn't where 96 was in my opinion. And so I think it's somewhere, I think it's in that 7 to 8 range, like you say, but I don't think it's quite an 8. I think that there was too many things that I had reservations about once I left to really give it an 8. Because when I hear somebody say like this is an 8 out of 10, I'm thinking like this is like, which it was in many ways, but that's about as close to a perfect movie as you can get. You know, there's not very many movies that are 8 out of 10s. You know, like in my opinion, like I gotta keep it a little lower on a Scream scale. Then yeah, I would say that this is probably an 8 or a 9, as far as like how close was it compared to the other sequels. But if we're talking about like a generalized scale, then yeah, I would say I'd say about a 7.5, something like that. But
all
yeah.
right.
All right.
Okay, guys.
Well, there you go, folks. We've given you our rankings for our ratings, not rankings, our ratings.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say what?
Which let's put an asterisk though, guys. All of these ratings could change the more we see the movie.
Yeah,
so you know, these could all change. It's very fluid.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyways, for you guys in the chat, we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We saw a lot of you guys. We didn't get to answer everyone's comments as usual, but that's okay because, you know, we got a lot going on. We're going to have to do a sequel to this discussion next week, Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please join us then. Give the video a like. That'd be great. If you're not subscribed to the Lethal Collective, please do so. That would really help support us and get this channel going like we know that it can. So we will catch you guys later. The Collective has spoken. Peace.
The Collective has spoken.
Hi, guys.
So good.